Chapter 2. The interviews. So yeah, I was in a real dilly of a pickle for a second there. I had just finished hearing the report from Ramirez's team. Sounded like things got way hairier than I expected. Is Chloe all right then? No problems there, Shuna said. The moment she reverted to her child form, she regained consciousness. We've placed her in the medical center for observation just in case. That was a relief. I had been told first thing that we had no casualties, but I couldn't really breathe easy until I saw things for myself. She was probably sleeping, so I decided I'd stop in to visit her the next day. Still. What an enemy we had to deal with. That diversion posing as an invasion, luring us into lightening the guard around Ramirez, and Dino picked that moment to turn traitor. He was more powerful than Beretta, and not even Beretta and Apito together could stop him. Apparently he was this close to scoring Ramirez, but Zijin popping in just in time had saved the day. One false move and it would have been a monumental disaster. The thought of what would have happened if Zijin hadn't woken up then made me shudder. I couldn't thank him enough for being on time. I have to say though, it was a surprise to see that Velgrind came back. I'd been told she was working with Masayuki and the Empire's top commanders to discuss their future direction. I'd need to meet and talk with her later, and no doubt she'd want to collect her thoughts before then as well. But if Velgrind stepped up to protect Masayuki, I guess that pretty much proved it now, huh? It made sense to me, but it also just added to the pile of questions I had. But we could tackle that stuff later. For now, I was going down my list of people due to brief me. Well, Ramirez, I'm glad you're okay, at least. Oh, you don't need to tell me twice. And, it's not like Dino tried anything funny with me at all, but if I got trundled out of the labyrinth, I would have been in a heap of trouble. Right? I mean, if I really tried at it, I could kick that kid's butt 6 ways to Sunday, but still. Good to see this ordeal didn't shake her at all. She was clearly angry about it, but now that she was safe, she was back to issuing idle threats like usual. In fact, she had still been peacefully sleeping when I got back, mumbling along the lines of, "Humph, damn you, Dino, I'm gonna execute all 48 of my sure kill moves on you," and so on. She always aggrandized her strength in her dreams, and that was apparently just as true when the target of her ire was safely far away from her. Yes, Dino should be grateful that Lady Ramirez didn't break out her 48 death strikes. Trainee, looking after her, wasted no time propping up her ego. Right? Right? I know. Ramirez eagerly nodded back. This was exactly why she got carried away all the time, you see. I asked Trainee in my mind to cut it out a little. My sincerest apologies, Sir Rimuru. I was negligent in my directorial duties. I never imagined Dino would turn against us. Vesta, meanwhile, was hanging his head low. He had shown up here ahead of everyone else in order to say sorry to me, in fact. He always had a strong sense of duty that way, and this event had shaken him pretty hard. So I smiled back, trying to soothe him. Nah, quit worrying about it so much. We all had our doubts about Dino from the start, so. Ramirez, Trainee, even Beretta, they all eagerly agreed with this. He's a demon lord, you know. I didn't trust him from the start. No. And I did not expect him to try anything this bold, but I always made sure he was kept on careful watch in case he tried something. And he was more dedicated to his work than any of us expected. That surprised me more than anything. They were trashing him pretty badly. I kinda wanted them to trust him a little more, but that was all shot now. Dino only came here because Guy told him to, besides, and he didn't even try hiding the fact that he was a spy. No wonder we always had our eyes on him. But the way I saw it. There's no need to dwell on it, Vesta. I don't think Dino did all that out of malice against us. That was my honest take. I'd expected him to pull something like this the whole time, yes, but in some ways, it felt like he'd all but asked us to keep a constant watch on his behavior. Maybe he thought it had come to this eventually. I couldn't help but suspect that. Yeah, well, he could have picked a less awkward way of dealing with us, said Ramirez. I would have been happy to talk with him about it. Right? If we were all getting along that well, don't you want to give him another chance? Dino might have had his own obligations to deal with too, I offered. My conjecture seemed to convince Vesta. Indeed. Well, if you want to continue trusting Dino, I will as well. I've made mistakes in my career, but, thanks to you and King Gazelle, I've returned to the right path. Nothing is more reassuring than having an ally on your side. Vesta relaxed his expression a bit. He seemed to be over whatever was bothering him, and I was glad for that. Besides, I really did want to believe in Dino, and I had another good reason for that, although I planned to keep it a secret until I had more confirmation. There was a distinct possibility Dino possessed an angel-type ultimate skill. The report said he'd evolved an ultimate skill from a unique one during battle, which sounded a little too convenient to me, but if it was true, it meant he could conjure skills out of nowhere like that. I firmly agree. Evolution mid-battle like that is normally unheard of. Seal, my heartfelt friend and partner, was on my side here. I relied on it more than anyone else. I had given a name to Raphael in the heat of the moment while I was fending off Velgrind, and the result was Seal, this new Manus core of intelligence. This was far more than just some simple thinking engine. Much like Cronoa, it performed its calculations independently from its master, kind of like I had a second mind operating in my body. It was clearly sentient, and now it was far more human-like in its reactions. That, I suppose, was why I felt so assured after Seal backed me up just now. It had made plenty of mistakes as well, but no reason to bring that up now. Besides, if it had remained in its unevolved Raphael form, I would have been in serious trouble, right? And looking back, it hadn't been operating too well when I was faced off against Ladora, or Michael I guess, apparently because of Ultimate Dominion's effects. That habit of falling silent whenever the conversation wasn't going its way was as strong as ever. Basically, what I'm saying is that I likely would have lost if it hadn't become Seal for me. Looking back now, it made me shudder how close to the brink I had been for a moment. This strikes me as pointless theorizing at this juncture. Wow, it's more of a sore loser than I am. Force the conversation into a conclusion and leave it at that, a page from my book. I know we both marched to the beat of our own drums, but still. Anyway, it seemed clear to me that Dino was hiding some kind of special power I'd like to know about. It is likely he was trying to disguise it. However, given his unnatural behavior, I am certain he possesses certain other abilities as well. If Seal says so, it's likely true. Dino was probably being controlled by Ultimate Dominion, what with having an angelic-type ultimate skill and all. He and I weren't connected by a soul corridor, so I couldn't just go and remove it from him that very moment, but I might be able to do it if we ever faced off against each other. That being said, there was still a chance Dino had betrayed us out of his own free will, so I couldn't be too optimistic. Either way though, I wasn't going to write him off as a hated enemy just yet. It would have been nice if the topic ended at this point, but Vesta wasn't the only person down in the dumps. I sincerely apologize, Sir Rimuru, for exposing Lady Ramirez to danger. Now it was Beretta taking a knee and bowing his head before me. Whoa there, Beretta, Ramirez yelled. You did a real good job for me. I think Ramirez was right. Beretta did an excellent job against Dino, an opponent who far outclassed him. No mistakes were made at all. In fact, I wanted to thank him for buying us so much time. I was concerned that Beretta would blame himself for any setback he'd faced in battle, and it looked like I was right. He and Vesta are good reminders that there's such a thing as being too dedicated. No, you successfully stalled for time like you were trained to do. You did a great job for me. But Lady Ramirez granted me the post of Dungeon Master, the keystone to all our defenses. You, as well, directed me to keep Lady Ramirez guarded. And now look what happened. Beretta was still arguing vehemently against himself. I'm sure he was frustrated about this, but Beretta had done all the right things down there. He'd sized up Dino, decided whether he could beat him, and then carried out his assigned role. If he had made the wrong call and tried charging into a fight he could never win, Ramirez would be well away from Tempest by now, and I wouldn't want to imagine the resulting carnage. So look, Beretta, you need to be more proud of yourself. I think my praise was getting through to him. He seemed calmer finally. And why not? The enemy's strategy had failed miserably in the end, and that meant Beretta and his cohorts had put up a brilliant performance. If you say so. Beretta was calmer but apparently still unconvinced. Still worked up about it? All right. Let's talk about this more later, okay? Come visit me in my chamber. Why yes, my lord. Thank you. If Ramirez was safe, then all was well, but Beretta refused to accept that. He got preoccupied with things way too much. Regardless, we'd have time to dig deeper into this later, so I moved on for the time being. Ramirez and Vesta were done with their briefings, so I turned toward Geld and Adelman. Great job protecting the city, Geld. You have my sincere thanks. I hardly deserve the praise, sir. I love this city, and I'm not about to let all our hard work be torn to pieces that easily. All my companions feel the same way, and I promise we'll improve ourselves so you never have to be worried about us. I'm glad to hear that, but don't push too hard, okay? Even now, I felt like Geld was overworking himself. If he went further overboard with it, he'd make everyone look like they were slacking off by comparison. It must put all his underlings on edge, I imagine. Their boss deserves some rest when he needs it. After I reinforced this with Geld, he moved on to his report. It seemed our enemy was closely involved with Dino. Geld had dealt with two of them, both women, named Pico and Garasha. As Ramirez also confirmed with me, they were part of the 7 primordial angels, serving the dragon Veldanava directly. Before then, they were Seraphim, the loftiest and most powerful echelon of angels, tasked with preserving stability in the world. Dino once belonged to this group as well, apparently, but we were running on the assumption that the foes who appeared on floors 50 and 70 were a different force from these primordials. I'm pretty sure the primordial angels govern over this other world, monitoring this powerful, unstoppable monster they banished there, you know? But the way Dino was talking, there are 3 of them left here as well. Those 3, I imagine, were Pico, Garasha, and Dino, former Seraphim who became fallen and now lived on the surface world. They kept watch over things, but we didn't even know if they were ordered to or just did it because they wanted to. All we could do was use the pieces of information we had to guess at their motivations. They were fairly powerful. If I hadn't evolved, I doubt I could have fended them off. If that's how Geld put it, they must have been pretty damn fierce. Pico was handled by Kamara, but that battle got pretty heated too, they said. But given how the enemy was also meddling with the labyrinth at the same time as this fight, we could assume they weren't putting their full force into the battle. Sounds like trouble. Yes. I'd prefer not to antagonize them, but it's too late for that. Let's bet on the assumption that Dino's being controlled and work out our strategy from there. Now for the other force we'd run into. So what about Serario then? I listened to Adelman explain. He was a fearsome foe indeed. Sir Cherise and Lady Trainee were handling him until I showed up, but they said they were all but helpless against him. This dude was even scarier, it turned out. I looked into the labyrinth's archives to check out the battle, but he was clearly a different type of creature from the fallen. He called himself part of the 3 mystic leaders too, a servant of the mystic lord, and that meant Feldway, that haughty mystic lord, was once the leader of the 7 primordial angels. The three primordials who joined him in the other world were now working with him as the three mystic leaders, I suppose. While they were gone though, Veldanava disappeared on them, so they had no way to return here. Then, somewhere along the line, they transformed from angel to mystic. Now it made sense. They must be lending a hand to this effort for reasons apart from Dino and his friends, maybe a friendly favor or whatever. That was my wishful thinking, at least. I agree with you. Well, that was reassuring. If Seal thought so too, it had to be the case. Either way, the three mystic leaders and their crew are definitely enemies to us. I want all of you to keep that in mind and stay alert. With that warning, I related everything I knew to my audience, mostly regarding Michael and the Mystic Lord Feldway. The exact nature of Michael's abilities was a key issue for us, so I revealed it all without hiding anything. Well, wait. So you think Dino is? That's why you said we should trust in him, Rimuru? So Ramirez finally noticed. I wasn't going to bring that up until I was sure about it, but this worked. Hopefully it's not premature to say that, but there is a possibility he's being manipulated, yes. If that turns out to be the case, Ramirez, let's forgive him, okay? Sure, all right. I hope you're correct. Ramirez gave me a cheerful smile. She seemed in brighter spirits than before, so I suppose taking this approach was the best thing for us. Now I just have to hope I was right about Dino. So as we exchanged this information with one another, the party went into full swing. Rigard was crying his eyes out, joyous as he was that we were all safe. Rigard extracted enough funding from Mealmile to ensure we had plenty of food to go with all our drinking, and Mealmile was an eager participant himself, showing off some parlor tricks for the guests. It's always nice to know I have such well-adjusted people working for me. With all the major briefings over, we were a bit more relaxed now. Relaxed and having some serious fun. I don't know who these three mystic leaders are, but let me at them, and they'll be eating dirt in no time. Great to hear, Benimaru. And really, I could barely recognize him compared to before he set off to battle. Wonder what had happened to him? Gwahahaha. And with me on your side, our next war is guaranteed to end in victory for us. Gabble was boasting away as well, and much like Benimaru, his boast was backed by a sudden, unexplained boost in his strength. Whoa, so cool, Sir Gabble. Indeed. You're an even greater man than ever. I'll follow you my whole life. His forces were as jubilant over him as always. My brother, please don't get carried away. You nearly got yourself killed this time, didn't you? And all of you realize that heaping all this praise on him is exactly why he gets so full of himself, don't you? Sokka wasn't as appreciative of this, but I hoped she'd let it slide for today. Gabble did do a lot to worry her though, so I wasn't gonna step in and stop her. That wasn't just me running away from trouble either, I want to make that very clear. A bigger concern was the dude next to me domineering over the entire crowd. Quahahaha. I understand you got your rear end beaten, Cherries. I keep telling you that you need more training. I have no defense, my lord. Quahahaha. No, you'd better not make excuses. Be brave enough of a man to admit your defeat. He already did, dude. And didn't Veldora lose to Velgrind too? Was he in any position to laugh in people's faces about their losses? Didn't you lose too? Huh? Wah. What are you talking about, Rimuru? I didn't lose at all. I was just a little out of shape. And he was making excuses about it too. For all his lecturing Cherries, he was barely one to talk either. But, my master, you know. He couldn't help it. The enemy interfered with him in, like, the most cowardly way ever. It doesn't count at all. Why yes, indeed. Well said there, Ramirez. No, my winning record remains unblemished. They haven't forgotten that Velgrind is right there, have they? It was such ugly excuse-making, I thought about bringing it up. I wouldn't have needed to worry so much if Veldora didn't lose, but we all knew how that turned out. Cherries, I know Veldora can be a pain, but I hope you won't abandon him, okay? Ha ha ha. Don't worry about that. Sir Veldora is my master now, and I intend to improve myself so I can earn more of his favor. So serious-minded. Kind of reminds me of Geld, in fact. That sure went to waste serving someone like Veldora, but still, I was really glad Cherries had decided to serve Veldora for me. The party continued on, and with it came a wealth of fine drinks. I was worried we were letting our hair down too much, but I was the only one. My officers, after all, had no problem neutralizing alcohol in their bodies. That made me wonder what the point of drinking was at all, then, but as they put it, they could still enjoy the feeling of inebriation and the way it loosened their tongues. I was the same way, so I decided not to go too deeply down this rabbit hole. All right, Sir Rimuru, allow me to fill you up. Hold on, Diablo. It was my turn next. Diablo and Xion were bickering with each other behind me. I really had a lot of trouble figuring out whether they loved or hated each other. They squabbled over the weirdest of things. Now, quit fighting over pointless matters and have something to drink yourselves, won't you? Kahehehehe. I'd be happy to. You can't trick me. I fall asleep when I drink, so I'm going to worry about attending to Sir Rimuru first today. Diablo was a wine person, it looked like. I can't speak intelligently about how wine tastes, but yeah, that suited his personality well. As for Xion, well, it wasn't that booze put her to sleep so much as it made her blackout drunk, getting tangled up with other people, causing a scene, you name it. Shuna had to keep a sharp eye on her, and the fact that she remembered none of it afterward made it harder to deal with. I'd usually offer her grape juice at times like these, but if she was abstaining today, that was fine. Actually, looking closer at the two of them, hadn't they gotten stronger too? In fact, all my top officers had grown in one way or the other, actually. Not just awakened, it was like something else happened to them. Please stop being suspicious of me. Oh, sorry. But. Yeah. Not even Seal could help people with their evolutions. I just provided a bit of a helping hand. Wait, you did? I really wanted to dive into this, but we were in the middle of a party. If Seal could do that now, it'd still be able to tomorrow, so let's just enjoy this moment for all we can. So, procrastinating on all my problems until the next day, I immersed myself in the feast. All my officers took the next day off. I felt bad for working Rigard and the administrative staff, but I asked them to check on the condition of our city's infrastructure and relay to our citizens what was going on. The city was back on the surface now, but we needed to see if things like the water and sewer system were damaged at all. Once our safety checks were complete, we'd allow evacuees to return to their homes. We had just wrapped up a major war, so I wanted our administration to get the rest it needed, but we also had to consider everyone else's lives as well. Thinking about it, working in government really is like being a slave to the people, isn't it? You have enough problems crop up in normal times, but whenever an emergency comes up, time off is the first thing to go on you. Things had gotten easier now that Testarossa and her pals were pitching in with governing, but we still needed to work on finding more personnel. Me? I'm an amateur, of course, so my job's more about reading through our documents and stamping my seal of approval on things. If something seemed like too much for us, I either rejected it or sent it back down to the relevant department for further consideration, that kind of thing. It only worked, really, because I had Seal handle all the detailed explanations for me. If it was only me, this structure would have collapsed long ago. So while it was the day after a big party, I still had a lot of stuff to check and approve. Rigard and his team were busy scurrying around the city, so this way, at least I wouldn't feel guilty about being lazy. But first, before I got to work, I decided to see how Chloe was doing. The moment I stepped into her room in our medical quarters, our eyes met. Mr. Tempest, Rimuru. Hee. You don't have to try so hard to talk like a grown-up. To me, you're the same Chloe you always are. Oh, come on. I know I look like a kid, but I'm every bit as grown-up as you are. In fact, Rimuru, I'm even older than you. I get that, but, I dunno, exteriors do count for a lot. When a total stranger sees me, they apparently think I'm a cute little girl after all, which was becoming a big hang-up for me. Careless words can really sink ships, that's important to remember. So I told Chloe how happy I was to see her safe, although she was blushing and pouting at me. She reacted by hiding her face in a pillow. Ugh. That's so unfair, Rimuru. How should I be interpreting this? Unclear. It is too difficult a question to answer. If Seal didn't know, I certainly didn't have a chance, either. So I just said, now, to try to assuage Chloe. After waiting a while for her to calm down, I asked for her story, what had happened in the battle and what had resulted from it. Well, I'm perfectly fine, but I can't talk to Cronoa anymore. The ultimate skills serial almost went out of control, so she's suppressing it for me. So Michael's rule was influencing her after all. Trying to take over something this precious was all but picking a fight with me. I'd seen Michael as an enemy before, but I didn't think I needed to show any mercy at this point. How do you feel now? I dunno. I can't fully handle Yog-Sothoth, and Cronoa isn't around to talk to, so I don't really know what's going on. Things sounded more serious than at first glance. I hadn't been relying on Chloe's battle skills from the beginning, but I guess I kidded myself into believing she could defend herself well enough. I rued that thought now, but the way things stood, Chloe's safety took first priority. As I am now, I have the right to interact with data particles, so I can influence Cronoa as a Monas. If I go into Chloe's spiritual space and invoke ability adjust, I could likely remove Michael's influence. Oh. So Seal could act upon her. Chloe, I think I can improve things for you if I act upon your skill a little. You can't do that, Rimuru. Back then, right at the end, Cronoa told me she couldn't exist independently if I relied on you any longer. Like, if I want to stand hand in hand with that man, I have to get out of this situation by my own power and stuff. And I agree with her too, so I can't have you help me, Mr. Tempest. Chloe stared me in the eye as she spoke. Her own eyes were sharpened upon me, despite her childish exterior, and I could imagine the beauty they'd have when she was an adult woman. It was more than enough to leave an impression on me, not that I'm into kids or anything. It's just that Chloe was so incredibly. Better stop there. I was gonna be following in the footsteps of a certain blonde-haired demon lord before long, and that'd be a big downgrade in my book, so I turned my mind elsewhere. All right. But if anything comes up, tell me, all right? I'll always be happy to talk things over with you. I patted Chloe on the head. She smiled appreciatively at me and gave a slight nod. The moment I was back from my visit, Vesta asked to speak with me on an urgent issue. What's up? Thank you for taking the time to see me. I know you must be exhausted by now, but I've received word from King Gazelle. Oh. That's right. Vesta propped his glasses back up on his nose. As you likely surmise, he's demanding an explanation for all this. Great. We staged a gigantic war in the backyard, then unceremoniously left without even bothering to clean up. No wonder he was mad at me. We didn't confine this whole deal to my territory, after all. We got the Dwarven Kingdom mixed up in it. Yeah, did he sound angry? I'd surmise he wasn't elated about it, no. Vesta wiped the sweat from his brow. I'll bet he was nervous. He had been partying it up with me over beer last night after all, so this was kind of his fault too. I was sure that with all the stuff we'd dealt with, he simply didn't have the time to deal with Dworgen matters, and it'd be mean to press him on that. But I was also sure Vesta felt irresponsible for not letting me know sooner. I was the most at fault, but... Can you send a reply saying I'll explain matters at a later date? I think we'll need to add an acceptable excuse, sir. That's Vesta for you. Sharp as a tack about this stuff. I love how much I can rely on him. Either way, we needed to organize a lot of things before we could give him or anyone else a coherent explanation. The first thing was to work out a schedule for this meeting. For now, I was leaving King Gazelle in Vesta's capable hands. Once we had everything worked out, then I'd discuss matters with the king. Now I was on my lunch break. Banishing all troublesome issues from my mind, I focused on enjoying my favorite meal of fried karaage chicken and yakisoba noodles in sauce. Then the thought occurred to me. What kind of stuff has Seal been up to behind my back? Seal had mentioned last night that it provided a bit of a helping hand, and I thought I needed to work out exactly how much of a hand it was and what exactly it involved. Seal's bit of help could often be far more than a bit, after all. Being treated with such suspicion is quite upsetting to me. So began Seal's testimony. Just as I thought, it had been up to all kinds of nonsense. The first thing it did was upgrade my skills without permission. That was based on the ultimate skill Shub-Niggurath, Lord of Abundance, and I did receive a report about all that, after the fact. When Velgrind's ability had just wrapped itself up, her skill Ragel, Lord of Relief, was integrated with the remains of Uriel, Lord of Vows, the essence of both being inherited by Shub-Niggurath. Seal had gone over all that with me, but I was too focused on Velgrind to pay any attention. So I went back over the documentation we had and listened to Seal explain Shub-Niggurath for me again. It was, in a real way, the crystallized result of the bonds I shared with the monsters who served me. Create skill. Craft new skills using information taken with food chain or analysis. Copy skill. Create a copy of an acquired skill. Grant skill. Give a copied skill to a qualified target as a gift. It can also be revoked later. Save skill. Digitize an acquired skill and instantly recreate it. That was the gist of it. My soul had a limited capacity, so I could only memorize so many skills at one time, it seemed. That's why some of my skills were more attached to my physical body than to my soul, but that type could express themselves only weakly. In my case, I had 4 ultimate skills at once, so I was sure my capacity was pretty close to maxed out. No, you have actually attained 5, not 4. Oh, right. I had taken in and analyzed Velgrind, so she'd be the same sort of living thing as Veldora was, and that earned me the new ability Velgrind, Lord of the Flame. Yeah, I was probably way over capacity then. I guess Seal transferred Uriel over to Velgrind because I was filled up. Yes, exactly. I had no other choice but to optimize your skills as much as I could. This was astoundingly fishy. Was Seal actually, and I saw this trend back in the Great Sage era even, treating skill collection as a hobby? My space was full right now, but I didn't want to drop anything. Was that why you forced this evolution? Allow me to continue my explanation. It changed the subject. Not only did turning into Seal make it feel much more human, now it was acting even more like a reckless freak, it seemed. But, no. It's all right. It's okay, isn't it? Please be okay, I prayed to myself as I resolved to trust in Seal. Anyway, as Seal put it, all the many skills taking up needless space in my soul had been dismantled, digitized, and streamlined for peak efficiency, and Shub-Niggurath had been crafted to oversee this process. With this ability, I could now influence all monsters connected to me via Soul Corridor. To be exact, I could grant them abilities. I think it goes without saying how insane a power this was. Now Seal was using Shub-Niggurath to help a bit with Benimru and the others. It was hard for me to complain about this, given that we stood a much higher chance of losing if this didn't happen. In fact, I decided to thank Seal. Not at all. I simply acted upon the wishes of my master. We had talked a lot, but Seal really did help me out. Keep up the good work, I said, thanking it one more time. With that in mind, I now had a better picture of what had happened to everyone. Considering we had enemies like Michael and the Mystic Lord at hand, we needed to build up our powers, but I couldn't dole out my strongest abilities as gifts to just anyone. Too much power in the wrong hands can destroy a person, after all, and I trusted Seal in the choices it made. It was addicted to tinkering with people on extreme levels, I knew, but I didn't think it'd try any truly impossible enhancements on anyone. It didn't seem like Seal gifted anyone with skills they couldn't fully use, but I still wanted to confirm that. But as I thought about that, Seal mentioned something out of nowhere. By the way, my master, we had talked earlier about running ability adjust on you. Would you like me to execute that? I had totally forgotten. And I could tell Seal was practically dancing around, incredibly eager to push the button. Guess it had come up with even more incredible improvements after much fumbling around. If I recall correctly, it talked about integrating the ultimate skill Veldora, Lord of the Storm, with Uriel to create the new ultimate skill Hastur, Lord of Starwind. But Seal had given Uriel to Velgrind in the meantime, so I suppose this ability adjust would turn out different now. Knowing Seal, it certainly wouldn't be a downgrade. On that topic, I had heard nothing about it, and Seal didn't mention anything, but I was willing to bet it had fully analyzed Ragel for me by now, right? Of course. Thought so. So I basically had 6 ultimate skills then? That, and my evolved officers were providing me with power via food chain. No wonder Seal needed Shub-Niggurath to manage all this stuff. Integrating and combining skills certainly seemed like the right thing to do, no point juggling a bunch of skills and not being able to fully exercise them. It looked to me like it'd try to integrate Velgrind, Lord of the Flame, with Belzebuth, Lord of Gluttony, to create something new. I was also wondering what happened to Raphael, Lord of Wisdom, now that Seal had decoupled itself from it. If Seal said it could optimize this extensive collection of skills I'd amassed, I had no reason to say no. We weren't at war right then anyway. I didn't see the problem. Okay, let's go through with it. Acknowledged, executing with haste. I was just about to say, wait, but it was already too late. Looking back, I'd committed a lot of mistakes in life. I'd regret them, but then I'd go commit more, never considering the consequences. And here I went again, huh? Why did I give out permission so carelessly like that? I never even checked exactly what kind of fearsome modifications Seal would perform on me. I never should have given it carte blanche like that, but Seal already had all its preparations in place, and it pressed the figurative ability adjust button instead of letting me hem and haw over it. It's too late to stop it now, Seal bragged, whistling a tune as it went. I think I'm safe in saying that Seal expected all this, the way I'd casually give permission, then immediately try to walk it back in a panic. It had accepted my request with dizzying speed, and now it was happily at work on it, like a dog with a biscuit on its snout who'd been waiting an eternity for the go signal. So, without offering another reply, Seal was immersed in its work. I was all but resigned to my fate. I mean, I was sure it'd pull some kind of crazy-ass new results for me, but... Well, if Seal was busy, I wasn't gonna get anywhere with my government paperwork. Best to turn the page for now and concentrate on my other duties. While Seal was beavering away, I wanted to engage my top-ranking officers in personal, one-on-one discussions. I sent Xian and Diablo out of my room for privacy reasons, and so I was alone for a little while. Xian needed to check on her own troops, so she left without complaint, but Diablo was a brat about it, talking about the need for a guard and whatnot. Finally, I told him, depending on how these conferences turn out, I might relieve you of your secretary duties. Wouldn't Testarossa be much more qualified anyway? She's strong and beautiful, and any secretary/bodyguard of mine needs to be strong, you see what I mean? That seemed to get the point across to him, and he left my office in a hurry. Hehehe. I had no intention of that at all, but he was so susceptible to this kind of talk. I was sure he was desperately staging practice combat with Testarossa and the other evolved demons right now. I doubted he would lose, but it could be a pretty good fight, actually. Losing would be a good lesson for him anyway. He needed to feel in danger some of the time. Now I was going to use this moment to interview my officials. I called Shuna and had her work out the schedule. That evening, I would have them visit this office in order, starting with those freest of obligations. First up was Beretta. I'd promised we'd have more time to talk later, so I invited him in first. With interviews like these, the first and last ones up tended to be the most nervous, but apparently in Tempest, people saw being picked first as the greatest of honors. I didn't really understand that, but that's apparently how it worked, and Beretta was in a really chipper mood over it. So about your concerns, you really have nothing to answer to about being defeated this time. Like, it's not even a defeat. You prevented the enemy from achieving their objectives, and I'd call that a victory. A great victory, really, seeing how nobody died. I tried to drive that point into Beretta, but he was still unpersuaded. I understand that, my lord, but a loss is a loss. To those of us in the Black Tribe, any loss is a hard pill to swallow. So he recognized we won, but he himself felt like a loser? He was so serious about this. So was Cherries. If it were me, I'd be telling everyone I knew about how I sealed the victory. Maybe it's quibbling, but if I'm convinced I won, then I did. Even a moral victory is fine by me. The Black Tribe, by the way, was a family tree in the demon race. I learned this only recently, but it turned out Beretta was a member, with Diablo, back when he was simply known as Noir, at the top. They did resemble each other in areas, especially in what sore losers they were. It made sense. Thus, I could certainly appreciate Beretta's frustration over this, but he really couldn't help how this turned out. I awakened my troops as an award for victory in this war, but the recipients had to be both Demon Lord seeds and connected to me via Soul Corridor. And Beretta wasn't. He satisfies these conditions. Whoa. You scared me. Seal was busy with its own work, but I guess it was lending an ear to our conversation. So maybe it could help with my paperwork, then. I happen to have enough souls gathered here to awaken just one person. What is your decision? Are you dodging my questions again? Maybe I shouldn't have evolved that ability of Seal's. Negative. No fact like that has been detected. No, Seal, stop acting like you've suddenly been downgraded back to Raphael. But in that case, it looked like we'd gained some more souls in our fight against the Imperial force. Using those, I could make all of Beretta's dreams come true. He worked real hard, after all, and I gave him no reward for it. I mean, he was technically serving Ramirez, not me, but I still saw him as a cherished friend. Protecting Ramirez was a tremendous job, and I wanted to keep counting on him for it. How about I show him how much I care, and ease one of his concerns while I'm at it? Well, I can understand if you're despondent about your lack of power. Let me give you further powers then. I stood up, mustered the most demon-lordliest pose I could, and extended a hand toward Beretta. Remember, all I can do is offer you assistance. What happens next is up to you. So I used my 100,000 souls trick on Beretta and carried out the evolution ceremony. Since I was the one who named him, he no longer could evolve by himself, and maybe this was necessary to karmically make up for that. Wah. You wouldn't. Beretta, you are likely to evolve now. May Ramirez continue to enjoy your protection. He was pretty surprised, but the evolution completed without a hitch, and much like the rest of Diablo's tribe, he wasn't put to sleep by it. As for how this evolution turned out. Name, Beretta, EP, 1,978,743. Race, High-Level Chaos Elemental Chaos Metalloid Protection, Labyrinth Protection. Title, Guardian of Ramirez Magic, Dark Magic. Ability, Ultimate Skill Deus Ex Machina, Lord of Machine Divinity. Tolerances. Cancel melee attack. Cancel ailments. Cancel spiritual attack. Cancel natural elements. Resist chaos attack. There it is. Beretta's body had also transformed into crimson steel, the divine metal, equivalent to God-class equipment. That explained the huge leap in EP, and it resulted from his adamantite body absorbing the massive number of magicules pouring out of him. EP, by the way, stood for existence points, not energy points, for reasons I wasn't let in on. Beyond that, the biggest shift was giving up the unique skill reverser for the ultimate skill Deus Ex Machina. This skill encompassed the abilities Hasten Thought, Universal Detect, Lord's Ambition, Mineral Domination, Control Earth Attribute, Inverse Fusion, Control Space, and Multilayer Barrier. I worked hard on that. Yes, I'm sure you did. Good job. You certainly don't hold back when someone grabs your interest, do you? My skills are important and all, but your hobby's never far from your mind, I suppose. You've been messing around with this skill set too, I see. It's very like Seal, I suppose. But enough about that. Look at Beretta. Combining mineral domination with Control Earth attribute let him freely control and manipulate any kind of mineral. He'd need some materials to work with, but there was a storehouse of magisteel in the labyrinth that was also connected to the surface world, so we should be able to spot him some. This ability was a side effect of evolving his body into crimson steel, it seemed. So it was kind of like control over the earth element, then? It let him transform metal into any shape he wanted, no matter how tough it was. Any weapons that hadn't been enhanced with magic or an aura hardly mattered to Beretta any longer. But even more vicious than that was how it allowed Beretta to freely make his body any shape he wanted. He could give himself an invincible body of liquid metal, like the bad guy in a classic action movie, impervious to pretty much any type of weapon. Sneaking up on foes like a slime, enveloping them, suffocating them to death. Just thinking of the possibilities made me shudder. He'd normally keep his usual form, that moving work of art, ball joints and all, but that was no longer what he looked like, so you had to be careful. Thus, Beretta was now a kind of derivative spiritual life form. Call it a metallic life form, if you want. It was actually a pretty moving moment, wasn't it? Seeing this doll I made on a whim evolve to this level. Looking at him, letting my emotions swell, I realized Beretta was now kneeling before me. I will never forget the great gift you have given me, Sir Rimuru. By my very life, I promise I will carry out the mission you have granted me. He was ready to go. I wanted to tell him not to push it too much, but with the dangers facing Ramirez, he may not have a choice. He'd have some tough battles ahead of him, no doubt, but I was sure he'd live up to my expectations. His protection, after all, was what let me sleep at night. Thank you, I said, nodding at Beretta. Now he was no longer troubled. My job was done, so I told him to return to his station and concentrate on recuperating for the time being. As I waited for my next interviewee, I thought about skills for a moment. Between the Evolution Festival I'd held earlier and the information I gained fighting the Empire's best, a couple of questions had formed in my mind. Skills were a type of power that took root in one's soul, following the rules this world worked under. One could also receive them from the world language after training hard enough or performing an impressive feat. I never gave them much deep thought, but really, it was an odd phenomenon. I'd just written it off as, that sort of thing, before, but during all this, I now had a question I couldn't ignore any longer. Basically, what was the true nature of skills? I'd had possession of a unique skill from virtually the moment I came to this world. In fact, I heard the world language in my mind just before I died in my old world, which showed that skills weren't exclusive to this one. That supposition only added to the questions, but now I couldn't stop wondering if people over in my other world could use skills too. Unique skills were something that only heroes, or champions, could ever obtain. As unique as they were, their effects ran the gamut, but they were all extremely powerful. They were physical manifestations of the user's desires, unleashing their effects based on what the caster wanted. In my case, I started out with Predator and Great Sage, the latter of which I never even asked for, which was funny. How rude. I very much was desired by you, Sir Rimuru. No, I think it was mainly because I was a virgin who wanted never mind. Out of my mind with it. If that's what Seal claimed, maybe that's what I hoped for, deep in my subconscious. Any further investigation would be dangerous, so let's leave it at that. But back to the topic. Skills latched onto people's souls, but that hadn't always been the case. Those obtained by pushing the physical envelope with your body could be etched into your body, not your soul. That's often what happened when a skill was obtained from monsters. Sometimes you gained a skill just by consuming them. These were called race-intrinsic skills, possessed by all members of a race and passed down across generations. If you wanted to earn a skill through hard training, the best you could hope for was an extra one. What mattered more came after acquiring it. If you could boost your mastery of that skill, or perhaps combine it with your sword talents to create original moves, you could have a powerful force in your hands. Magic, too, was a kind of skill, as proven by all the spells I had consumed and learned. So there were many things that the term skill could cover, but the most important among them were unique skills. These were abilities created strictly within individual people, and each one was different. Some unique skill families were like each other, but it's believed that no two unique skills were exactly alike. They would sometimes be repeated over great lengths of time, but that was a special exception. Ravenous, the unique skill possessed by the Orc Lord that had attacked us, was one of those. It's a race-intrinsic skill passed to awakened members of the race, something that existed only within certain bloodlines. Ravenous was also attached to its owner's physical body, so other races likely could not handle it. I had combined it with Predator immediately upon ingesting it, so I never had to worry about any of those issues. Shizu's unique skill Deviant was believed to be derived from her soul. She'd entrusted it to me, and that's why I became able to use it, but otherwise I wasn't sure I would have been able to get it at all. I had the impression by now that soul-derived skills were the stronger kind. By the way, the ultimate enchantment alternative that Ladora gave me was, as you'd expect, rooted in the body. You needed to be at least a saint to have the energy required to work it, so unless you created that ability yourself, it'd be pretty inefficient to use. Maybe that's what gave you a chance to defend against even powerful unique skills. Jiwoo and Bernie had ultimate skills, but Diablo had defeated them anyway, which was normally unheard of. Unique skills didn't work on ultimate skills, only other ultimate skills did. There were exceptions, Chloe's unlimited imprisonment and absolute severance, along with Masayuki's chosen one, but trying to beat an ultimate skill wielder with just a unique was insanely reckless. Even uniques could vary widely in power, but when stacked up against an ultimate, the difference was like heaven and earth. Someone who gained an ultimate had gained a new insight into the world. It therefore existed on a higher plane than magic based on the world's rules. Resisting it would require something like disintegration, the most powerful of all holy magic, or the kinds of ultimates the primal demons threw around. That's why I thought Diablo might have beaten them with an ultimate of his own, but something told me that was wrong. I mean, he probably could have just steamrollered straight through all that and won anyway. It proves there are no absolute locks in the world, I suppose, but regardless, under the right conditions, it was possible for someone without an ultimate skill to defeat an ultimate user. Someone with completely mastered arts could do it. Maybe holy-level sword moves were stronger than your average skill in the end. Still, if you wanted to take on ultimate force, the best way was definitely to have an ultimate force of your own. To sum up, skills may be etched into your soul or stored in your body. Unique skills, based on my experience, could be awarded when you have a strong desire or craving for one. This process is more about compatibility than talent. No matter how much you want one, you won't earn it if your EP count isn't high enough. Wishing really hard wouldn't work alone, only when overcoming challenges and obstacles in your way could you earn one. Skills are stronger when you earn them for yourself, rather than being awarded them by someone else. Skills that manifest themselves within one's soul also outclass ones that take residence in the body. No two skills are identical. Even skills with the same name are likely to be different in terms of capability or rules of operation. They evolve based on the user's wishes, so they may change in many unpredictable ways depending on that. The difference between unique and ultimate skills isn't necessarily insurmountable. The strength of a skill is easily swayed by the owner's mind. It likely took a stronger will to extract better effects from them. Skills are, at the core, the ability to affect the laws of the world simply by wishing it were so. Activating such power, the kind that impacts the very root of the world, is impossible without a steel will. It's clear how important the power of one's will is. That, and the ability to size up a skill and work out how to use it correctly. I'd had Raphael with me, always ready to explain how to use a skill the best way. Other people may use their skill incorrectly and fail to get the most from it, even if the skill was born from their own wishes. Among more recent examples, Dino certainly made some amusing mistakes with his. Oh. I asked for more details, and Seal was excited to offer some. Dino's skill evolved itself mid-battle, as I stated earlier. Sloth, the sin-based skill that's among the strongest of uniques, had turned into the ultimate skill Belphegor, Lord of Sloth. This would normally be a truly fearsome force to reckon with, but Zijin still thoroughly thrashed him. Zijin's overwhelming strength was one reason, I'm sure, but there was another, more fundamental issue at hand. Dino wasn't using Belphegor correctly. He was using it for disguise purposes though, so maybe he didn't try to fully examine it at all. Belphegor, evolved from Sloth, itself the result of Dino's lazy personality, had the trait of growing weaker the more its owner moved around. It was thus meant more for supporting the user's friends and underlings. It was a skill that could have granted the power Dino stored inside himself to his companions, and that would have been the most useful way to use Belphegor. This all happened while we were gone, but video from the entire battle was stored in the Labyrinth archives. Analyzing it was part of Seal's hobby, and now it was kind enough to report the results to me. He definitely wouldn't have made that mistake. He'd grasp the essence of the skill and use it correctly each time. But someone as lazy as Dino would judge the book by its cover and never notice what was really lurking inside. If anything, the biggest mistake our enemy made this time was making Dino do actual work. If they had let him goof off all day like usual and made his friends Pico and Garasha do all the work instead, Geld and Kamara might have gotten into real trouble. Maybe we were lucky that way. My giving Dino work and helping him see that labor can be satisfying might have been the break that led to our victory in a way. But if he got a rep for screwing up more often as he worked, it'd be awful for his future, so if we ever bury the hatchet, I better explain all of this to him. So gaining a correct grasp of your skills can be far from straightforward. Sometimes they triggered without your even wanting them to, like with Masayuki. Skills like that were frustratingly difficult to control and even harder to fully master. Understanding and mastering the essence of a skill was really the same thing as grasping your own mind. It was tricky, something you had to dedicate yourself to your whole life. If you just saw a skill as a handy weapon, you'd never extract the true worth from it. You are exactly right. So face up to me more and treat me nicer, please. I felt like this was the wrong interpretation, but I decided not to dwell on it. Right when I was reaching this conclusion, I heard a knock on the door. Benimaru came in, guided by Shuna. You called for me? I understand this is a one-on-one interview, but what did you want to ask me? He spoke up the moment he sat down on the sofa facing me. Perhaps he thought this was some sort of classified conversation, but it wasn't. Oh, I apologize, this is just kind of a whim on my part. A whim? Yeah. All of us gained a lot more power in this war, didn't we? We can measure people's existence points in the labyrinth, so I thought we'd take a moment to grasp exactly how much war power all of us have. I see. Yes, that is important. Benimaru's face brightened up. I guess he was prepared for a grilling about life as a newlywed. Well, no, I mean, I am curious about that stuff too, but it'd be abusing my authority if I asked you point blank. Wouldn't it? It would. Because Soei is all like, haha, if you evolved that well, you must be taking care of business at home. You're such a late bloomer that I thought I'd need to give you some help and so on. Big brother? Shuna interrupted us with a smile and a tray with some slices of cake. The sheer impact sent shivers down my spine. Are you speaking untowardly to Sir Rimuru? Sorry. Even the tough-as-nails Benimaru couldn't beat Shuna. And look at you too, Sir Rimuru. You need to rebuke my brother, not play along with his silly talk. Why yeah, okay. I'll be sure to. Firing back would achieve nothing. Understanding that, I waited for Shuna to get in a better mood. The cake was nice and all, but thanks to how anxious we were, I could barely taste it. The moment Shuna took the tray away and left, Benimaru and I both let out a mighty sigh. Phew. That was a mistake. Yeah. Next time we talk about things like that, let's make sure it's the right time and place. Roger that. I was trying to say that I didn't like that talk either. Why'd it turn out like this? True. Although the way he was phrasing it, it was sounding dangerously close to bragging. But we could go in depth on that later. For now, as we planned, I wanted to examine Benimaru's current state. Name, Benimaru, EP, 4,397,778 plus 1.14 million for Guren. Race, God Ogre, High-Level Chaos Elemental Flame Soul Ogre. Protection, Rimuru's Protection. Title, Flare Lord Magic, Flame Soul Magic. Ability, Ultimate Skill Amaterasu, Lord of Shimmering Flame. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Cancel Ailments, Resist Spiritual Attack, Resist Chaos Attack. That's how things turned out. Damn, he's strong. The ultimate skill Amaterasu was obtained in exchange for giving up the unique skill-born leader. It included the abilities Hasten Thought, Universal Detect, Lord's Ambition, Regulate Thought, Dominate Heat, Dominate Space, Multilayer Barrier, and more. Some of Velgrind's abilities were reflected in this list, Seal told me, but Benimaru was also very close to getting an ultimate skill by his own power. Seal just gave him a little nudge in that direction, it claimed. Still, if Benimaru's EP count was more than 4 million, and that got bumped up another million when he had Guren out, wouldn't that make him stronger than Luminous by now? I should note here that you, probably, couldn't fake your EP. Or, to put it more accurately, the existence points of someone in the labyrinth could be measured to a high level of accuracy. If you wanted to try faking it, you'd need to do something like carry a concealed god-class weapon on you or keep a separate body elsewhere like Velgrind. A mere replication would produce much smaller EP counts, so it'd be spotted as a fake pretty quickly. Outside the labyrinth, there were lots of ways you could fake EP, but trying to bring that game into the dungeon was like trying to sneak up on someone in a swimming pool by keeping your head underwater. Ramirez's appraisal skills would easily spot it. She was good at detail-oriented work like that, despite all her many other shortcomings. Unfortunately, she didn't really understand what she could and couldn't do. We could only perform these exact measurements because someone had mentioned in idle conversation, boy, it'd be nice if we could get more accurate with people's EP counts. I think it was Shinji, but anyway, Ramirez replied, oh, we can. The scene was pretty awkward after that, I was told. I'm sure everyone was like, why didn't she tell us sooner? Then we would have been able to measure Luminous, and Guy, and Velzard too. Hell, if we'd gotten stats for Dino instead of skipping them because he was a trusted guest, we would have realized just how much stronger he was than he looked. Of course, even if we knew, it wouldn't mean much unless we were sure he'd betray us. We should have been more on alert overall, but I don't think we could have avoided how this turned out. Anyway, although they were just reference figures, EP was a useful yardstick for measuring someone's strength. I was now certain that Benimaru, at least, could hold his own against Dino or the three mystic leaders. He was near the top of the million class, and I couldn't be gladder to have him at my side. But there was one thing bothering me. Hey, so don't monsters get weaker when they conceive children? That's right. Your magicule count goes down, generally. So why did you get stronger? Ha ha ha. That is strange, isn't it? Ha. What a breezy smile on him. He might have been trying to laugh it off, but I wasn't about to let him. No, man, what's going on with you? I don't know, either. Soe has been hounding me about it too, asking why all the time. It's a real pain. So I wasn't the only one interested. If we could find an answer to this question, it'd be great news for monsters. I mean, a lot of hobgoblins get married and none of them complain about getting weaker, but the impact's bigger the more high level you are, so I wanted to search for a solution eventually. Well, if you see something, let me know, okay? All right. I'll go call Soe in, then. With that last doubt, I wrapped up the interview. Soe came in right after Benimaru left. The moment he sat in front of me, I voiced my complaint to him. Okay, first off, can you not pick on Benimaru so much, please? Heh. Well, he's always been such a late bloomer in so many ways. You have to light a fire under him or he'll just sit on his hands forever, I thought. He might have a point. Benimaru had said something about having to conceive a successor before he could evolve, so I could understand Soe's concern. All right. Let's leave it at that. Now, about your evolution. Soe had been affected by Benimaru's own evolution. Name, Soe, EP, 1,281,162. Race, God Ogre, Mid-Level Chaos Elemental Dark Soul Ogre. Protection, Flare Lord's Shadow. Title, Dark Shadow. Magic, Dark Soul Magic. Ability, Ultimate Skill Tsukuyomi, Lord of Moonshade. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack. Pretty strong. And pretty resistant too. Defeating Soe would require some sort of ultimate level attack, maybe chaotic or sword-based in nature. Seal had awarded him the ultimate skill Tsukuyomi, and it came with quite a list of abilities: Hasten Thought, Universal Detect, Eye of the Moon, Insta-Kill, Ultra-Speed Action, Spiritual Control, Parallel Existence, Control Space, Multilayer Barrier, and so on. Whoa! You can use Parallel Existence now? I blurted out the question, much to my surprise. Yes, Soe casually replied. I cannot control multiple selves simultaneously like Lady Velgrind, but even if it's just one existence, I'm certain that it's still a useful skill. Yeah, I'd be pretty certain too. Now Soe was another step closer to de facto immortality, but maybe Eye of the Moon was even more worth diving into. It let him control shadows in any way he wanted, allowing him to do many things without being spotted by a target. It was notable for its broad effective range. It could cover an entire town, even. Nothing was better for intelligence gathering, not to mention assassination missions. Soe's skill is quite an achievement. I packed it full of things he wanted in order to recreate the ninja in my master's memories. I thought it was a pretty big heap of abilities. That was the reason, huh? One impressive aspect of Eye of the Moon is that Soe's replication can use it as well. He could send replications across the land, share information among them with Eye of the Moon, then use thought communication to spread this intelligence worldwide. I could tell Seal was proud of it. The more I heard about this skill, the more amazing it sounded. Basically, it was an upgraded version of Argo's, my surveillance magic. He could monitor the situation in locations worldwide, then capture it in video, with sound, even. Now I could rely on Soe for just about anything, and he definitely had a job leading our intelligence for as long as he wanted it. Okay. I'm going to give you a new title while I'm at it. You will now be known as the Darkness Seer. I hope you'll continue to lead Team Kuraimi and serve our nation. Yes, my lord. I'll do everything I can for you, Sir Rimuru. No, do it for my nation, not me. But whatever. Great. I appreciate it. I offered Soe my heartfelt thanks. We spent the next hour or two discussing an assortment of things, his grievances, how Sokka and the gang were doing, that kind of thing. He told me that his team of 5, Sokka included, had grown to attain an average EP of just under 200,000. Sokka herself was at 261,898, quite high. Once upon a time, that'd make you the adjutant to a demon lord. Even now, you could fight off some pretty high-level foes. She must have grown her force a lot in this war. There is no better training than war, Soe told me, a line I thought I'd heard somewhere before. But I wanted to remind him not to assume someone could do something just because he could. Everyone is different, with their own talents and things they're not so good at. I knew all about Soe's talents, but I didn't want him putting a similar workload on his troops. Do that, and we risked losing some real talented personnel. But isn't it natural for us all to make every effort possible for you, Sir Rimuru? Well, no, it's not. I mean, if you stick to that way of thinking, you're gonna lose followers eventually, you know? You need to value your troops more than that. Consider ways they can find their work more fun and stick to it for longer. That's the job of a boss, after all. I always think people will follow you if you give them real motivation to. This is work, of course, so just having it be fun won't be enough, but I think offering some sense of achievement is important. If you're constantly struggling under an impossible workload, you'll never get the joy of achievement. And when someone achieves something, giving them even more work after that is a definite no-no. I know that'd piss me off. You do it, I'd say, but with Soe, he'd actually do it all, which would lead to self-loathing and a lot of mental stress. That was my concern. You need to treat your tools well, in other words. Stop calling your coworkers tools. Look, it's great to take pride in your work, but it's nothing that's forced on you, okay? As their boss, you gotta recognize people for their achievements. They'll be happier that way. I see. Indeed, receiving praise from you provides me the ultimate in joy, Sir Rimuru. He's pretty serious-minded too. Or maybe just tiresome. Anyway, why don't you take this opportunity to hold a little get-together with your troops? Understood. As the boss, it's my job to grasp my staff's mental state. I will endeavor to provide more care for them. Don't go overboard. Well, I'd expressed my concern to him, at least. A few days later, Sokka and the gang sent me a letter of thanks. It was literally stained with tears of joy, so I patted myself on the back for that. Job well done. My next interview was with Gabble, who arrived after dinner. Gwahahaha. I, Gabble, have come at the bidding of my master, Sir Rimuru. Today, or tonight, as always, Gabble was in high spirits. I invited him to sit, reminding him to keep it down in the evening like this. Once Shuna provided some tea, I got straight to business. You certainly performed well this time. Everyone got back alive because of your hard work. Great job holding out until the end. I wanted to personally thank you for that. I was grateful to Gabble on a personal level, not as leader of Tempest. If he had given up at any point, we definitely would have lost some people. Sir Rimuru. Even those words are enough to move me to great heights. Gabble sobbed. I waited for him to calm down, not wanting to ruin his reverie. The fact that we survived this war, much less emerged victorious, is all because of you, Sir Rimuru. That voice, I was sure of it when I heard Lord Ghidorah's whispering. But that was your voice, wasn't it? Oh, did he pick up on Seal's voice? kind of. It'd be a long story to explain to him, but really, Seal was my joker card. I didn't want to use it for no reason, so I played along with Gabble's confusion. Aha! I knew it. And if that wasn't around to give me the strength to soldier on, I know the battle would have been impossible to win. I am constantly told by my peers not to get carried away, so I absolutely refused to lay exclusive claim to this victory. Now Gabble was composed. It showed me he meant what he said. You've sure grown. Yes, my lord. Hearing those words from you, Sir Rimuru, I'm just so thankful, so inspired. He broke down in tears again, just like before. His handkerchief wasn't going to cut it, so I handed him a towel. But his stats really did impress me. Name, Gabble, EP, 1,263,824. Race, Dragon Newt, mid-level Chaos Elemental Water Spirit Dragon. Protection, Rimuru's Protection. Title, Draco Lord. Ability, Ultimate Gift Moodmaker. Intrinsic skills, Magic Sense, Keen Sense, Dragon Skin, Flame Breath, Thunder Breath. Tolerances, Cancel Pain, Resist Ailments, Resist Natural Elements, Resist Melee Attack, Resist Spiritual Attack, Resist Chaos Attack. While I wasn't paying attention, he had grown about as strong as Soe. Gabble's Ultimate Gift Moodmaker was another masterpiece from Seal. He hadn't earned it by himself, but I wouldn't hate on it for that. He got it only because it was such a perfect match for him. It included 5 main abilities: Hasten Thought, Alter Destiny, Control Unforeseen, Control Space, and Multilayer Barrier, but if he could learn how to fully control the aura that leaked out of him, he'd also gain Lord's Ambition in time. Alter Destiny was the real killer among them. It could be invoked only once per day, but it could completely turn the tables in battle, even against foes who outclassed him. What would have happened if someone besides Gabble got this? If someone like Diablo had Alter Destiny, he could have been the strongest dude on the planet. Gabble really was an amazing person that way. What impresses me the most, however, is his performance in battle. He bragged about this to me for a bit after he finally wiped away all his tears. Yes, the enemy's spear was coming at me with screaming force. But I just grinned a little and used my lance to deflect it. That's the thing. Gabble wielded the Vortex Spear, a unique class magical weapon. It was once the secret treasure of the Lizardman race, he told me, and while it was strictly unique in quality, it had deflected away the God-class Azure Dragon Spear, which I thought must have been a joke. It's not just difference in ability that decides the fate of a battle, eh? Gwahahaha. He was laughing about it, but I thought that decided a lot of it, no? If Gabble deflected a legend-class weapon, I'd concede that maybe, 1 in 1,000 times or something, that would be possible. But God-class? Impossible. The only real explanation I could think of was, Gabble likely has full unconscious control of his skill, effectively upgrading the Vortex Spear. Being protected by an ultimate level ability is believed to be why the spear survived without being shattered. I suppose so, yeah. Another reason Gabble really impressed me sometimes. He was dedicated to hard work too, something that his usual behavior didn't make very clear. Between research and battle, he was capable of just about everything. I bet we could expect a lot from him in the future. Hey, speaking of that, do you mind if I keep your Vortex Spear for a bit? I wanted to ask Kurobe to give it a new birth, so to speak. What? Right, he'd craft it again and transfer the old weapon's experience into the new one. I'm planning to provide some crimson steel for the materials, so I bet he could evolve it into a god-class weapon, you know? Crimson steel was still a rare commodity, but I wasn't gonna cheap out with Gabble. I really did want to upgrade his weapon too, as a reward and to prepare for the grueling battles of an age to come. If he was reluctant to let go of a weapon passed down by his family, I'd do something else for him instead. Yes. Yes, please, I beg you to do that for me. He was bawling yet again as he handed the spear over to me. With this god-class weapon in hand, I was sure Gabble would grow even stronger in time. If it recognized and accepted Gabble as its master, that would boost his existence points as well. He could even become a half-spiritual life form, which would do a lot for his resistances. Also, the Heaven Flyers that had served under Gabble in the previous battle boasted an average EP of over 120,000, with the best of them surpassing 200,000. I sincerely hoped that they continued giving Gabble their support. So our interview came to a close, although Gabble practically cried the entire way through it. Late that night, I was in a private room within a certain exclusive, members-only club. Normally, a beautiful elf would share a seat with me, but I turned them all down this time. Tonight, it was just Geld and me, sitting face to face. How are you feeling? Just fine. I've grown used to this power, so I shouldn't be breaking any more glasses. Geld smiled and nimbly emptied his drink. A normal-size glass looked like a child's paper cup in his hands. Now, I wanted to see you so we could drink the night away, and also to formally recognize you for your services. I'm honored, Sir Rimuru. Simply hearing those words from you couldn't make me happier. He usually acted so cool and unaffected, but I could tell he meant those words from the heart. I nodded back and shared a toast with him. We then spent a little bit talking about Geld's work and life issues before tackling serious business. So I wanted to talk about something that I'm afraid might offend you a little. Is that okay? I asked him. Go right ahead. I would consider nothing you do offensive. No, I can be pretty insensitive to people sometimes, so I wanted him to cut me off if he didn't like it. I'm the sort who gets pretty cutting with his joking around without meaning anything by it, so if I went too far, I hoped he'd stop me. I'd always had the gift of gab like that. This one time in grade school, I went to this girl and actually, never mind. It's beyond embarrassing, and we've both long since moved on. I'm aware that I'm lacking in tact even now, but I'm trying to improve on that, avoiding any witty rejoinders that bring people down. Whether I'm succeeding or not is another thing, but if Geld's all for it, let's press on. All right. I'll say it then. But if it doesn't sound like something you like, don't be afraid to say no, okay? With that preface, I made the proposal. It was, of course, an offer to accept a round of Seal's ability adjust, but I was hiding Seal from everyone, so I framed it with Geld more like, mind if I futz around with your skills a bit? But Geld immediately told me to go ahead. Perhaps, he said, my weakness has caused some concern. If this will strengthen me, there is no need to ask permission. I look forward to it. He stressed his point by emptying his drink. He didn't seem too resigned about this, rather, he was showing his resolve in his own way, like it was natural to accept this whether or not he liked it. I gave him an approving nod as I refilled his glass. Name, Geld, EP, 2,378,749. Race, Boar God, High-Level Chaos Elemental Earth Soul Boar. Protection, Rimuru's Protection. Title, Barrier Lord. Magic, Recovery Magic. Ability, Ultimate Gift Beelzebub, Lord of Gluttony. Tolerances, Cancel Pain, Cancel Ailments, Resist Natural Elements, Resist Melee Attack, Resist Spiritual Attack, Resist Chaos Attack. The moment Geld accepted my offer, Seal swooped into action, going crazy without waiting another moment. Geld had obtained the ultimate skill Beelzebub, which included a wide variety of abilities: Hasten Thought, Magic Sense, Lord's Ambition, Ultra Speed Regeneration, Predation, Stomach, Isolate, Demand, Provide, Rot, Iron Wall, Grant Protection, Stand-in, Control Space, Multilayer Barrier, Keen Smell, and Armorize Body. It was a slightly inferior version of my Beelzebub with a lot of other stuff thrown in. Using Grant Protection on his troops would provide a full layer of defense for them, and Geld himself could use Iron Wall and Stand-in to take damage in place of his companions. Rot was both offense and defense. it wasn't just a straight-up wall but could put up a much-appreciated attack as well. Perfect for someone as defense-oriented as Geld, and I was sure he'd master it shortly. What's worth noting here is that Geld himself is an amazing fighter. It's definitely not just his skills at work. His armor was now god class, practically a part of his physical body. It worked the same as the clothing on demons, summonable whenever he willed it. His meat cleaver was similar as well. He could create a new one whenever it broke, and the next time we had Kurobe work on it, it'd stay in that condition whenever summoned. It honestly felt like cheating a little. Either way, Geld's EP went up with this gear on, but his core stats were just fine as well. With Belzebuth now in the picture, his strength could easily overwhelm Soe or Gabble. He should be able to hold his own against those three mystic leaders even, or stall for time at least. Defeating Geld when he was 100% devoted to defense would be tough without one serious attack. Now I can rely on you more than ever, huh? I am glad to hear that. I swear to you I'll exert myself as best I can to protect everyone. We smiled at each other. He'd be an integral part of my scheme for a while to come. I was at my private residence, in my usual chambers, thinking over the interviews I had planned for tomorrow. I didn't begin this day's round until evening, so I only got to 5 people. We were all busy at the moment, so I couldn't devote whole days to this. We had 9 out of the 12 lordly guardians to go, not to mention a few other people I hoped to talk to. At the very least, Dr. Seal wanted an audience with a pedo. I guess it was eager to tinker with her skills too. I wasn't sure if being so devoted to its own desires was such a good thing, but I couldn't deny that it'd probably help us all out. There was no reason to say no, so I'd be pretty occupied tomorrow. Seal wanted to do the same with Shuna, so we arranged for that. I told Diablo and Shion that I'd see them later, so hopefully I could be efficient with things the next day. Masayuki and his friends were a concern of mine, but it sounded like they were kind of caught up in lengthy meetings as well. I received a terse report from them, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I should intervene. Until Masayuki and the Empire officials talked things over at least, I would merely observe instead of butting in. Of course, I was also having trouble relaxing because Velgrind was still around. Floor 70 was a little hard for most people to set foot in these days. Veldora had quickly fled into his own chambers too, which made me nervous. She and I hadn't been separate for that long, yet I couldn't help but wonder what kind of experience she was getting down there, but I'd have to wait for her to reach out. In the meantime, I had to do what I was capable of. Suddenly, I felt someone's presence. Ranga was watching me, his head fully popped out from my shadow. Whoa! You scared me. Great to see you woke up, Ranga. I was happy enough that I switched to human form and gave him some scratches on his head and ears. He responded with a happy, yet saddened sort of look, ears kept down. What's up? Not feeling well? I worried that the evolution had gone awry somehow. But it wasn't that. My master, I fear I have overslept and missed the entire war. Ah. He was just moping then. Oh, is that it? It's no big deal. You say that, master, but thanks to me, Gobta and the others lost their chance to contribute as well, did they not? He was right, but what do you want? If he was safely through his evolution, he could kick ass for us later on and it'd all be good. Gobta and his team were helping serve tables and entertain people at the parties. Nobody voiced a word of complaint about you, Ranga. So don't worry about it. It is deeply touching to hear that from you, my master. With a whine, Ranga extracted himself fully from my shadow and rubbed up against me. I gave him some more scratches. It was my first chance to experience all his fluff in a while, and I was happy for it. But back to business. Since he's here, let's check him out. Name, Ranga, EP, 4,340,084. Race, God Wolf. High-level Chaos Elemental Windsal Wolf. Protection. Rimuru's Protection. Title, Star Lord. Magic, Wind Soul Magic. Ability, Ultimate Skill Haster, Lord of Starwind. Tolerances, cancel melee attack, cancel natural elements, cancel ailments, resist spiritual attack, resist chaos attack. Oh, Ranga's race went all divine too, huh? And, he looked a lot stronger than, say, a local god worshipped by some tiny backwater. This wasn't a problem, was it? I suppose Soe would be treated as a kind of supporting god to Benimru, but I guess once your EP passes 2 million, you take on divine properties. I couldn't be sure of it, but that's what it felt like. We will need to collect more sample data, but it seems like a valid assumption. Right. You become a saint upon reaching 1 million, so maybe 2 million was the magic number for demigodhood? Taking on divinity didn't make you a de facto god, really. You weren't omnipotent or anything, but you'd be seen as a symbol of strength, at least. And, sheesh, Ranga was past 4 million. That was, equivalent to a swordless Benimru. What a fearsome evolution he'd had. Wow, Ranga. Great job. Ha ha ha. It is all thanks to you, my master. He chalked it up to constantly being in the presence of my aura. Staying in my shadow and absorbing all those magicules must have streamlined the evolution one heck of a lot. And look at all the amazing abilities he got out of nowhere. The ultimate skill Haster wound up being scored by Ranga in the end, not Veldora. And if I had to guess. Correct. I lent a little bit of a hand. I knew it. It wasn't a gift, so I understood that Ranga had earned it himself, but there was no way Seal didn't offer a helping hand. The ability suited him fine, at least, so I had no complaints. This skill included 7 abilities: Hasten Thought, Universal Detect, Lord's Ambition, Dominate Weather, Dominate Sound and Wind, Dominate Space, and Multi-Layer Barrier. Being able to control weather itself said everything you needed to know about how amazing this was, I thought. Truly a skill befitting Ranga. Now my only worry was whether Gobta could make full use out of the guy. It was time to go back to work. I spent the night hanging out and playing with Ranga, but I was feeling just fine. My first visitor was Kamara, and these were her first words after we said hello. I heard you were making adjustments to our skills. Sir Ranga was bragging about it to me earlier. If you have new abilities to provide me, I'd love to have them. She was in her little girl form, looking as cute as possible while wheedling me. Ranga had earned his skill himself, but I guess he was aggrandizing my role in it. I really thought he should be more proud of himself than me, but for reasons I didn't quite understand, Ranga emphasized my involvement in it most of all. It was all Seal, actually, but that was a secret, so I just gave Kamara a vague nod. So now what? I'll allow it. I thought it'd say that. Seal had no interest in holding back, I knew, and I hated to leave everything to it, but I knew we still had enemies in this world, and we needed to get as prepared as we could. All right. A lot of it will depend on you, but let's see what we have here. Seal couldn't make the impossible possible after all. If there wasn't a skill compatible with her, I'd have nothing to provide. Once I made that clear with her and she agreed to it, I passed the baton over to Seal. Name, Kamara, EP, 1,899,944. Race, Ninetail, High-Level Chaos Elemental Earthsoul Beast. Protection. Rimuru's Protection. Title, Chimera Lord, Magic. Earth Soul Magic. Ability, Ultimate Gift Bahamut, Lord of Fantastic Beasts. Intrinsic Skills, Dominate Beast, Unite Beast. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Resist Natural Elements, Resist Spiritual Attack, Resist Chaos Attack. It took some time, but we were successful. Kamara obtained the ultimate gift Bahamut, Lord of Fantastic Beasts. This includes 6 abilities: Hasten Thought, Universal Detect, Lord's Ambition, Dominate Gravity, Dominate Space, and Multi-Layer Barrier. That let her interact with the planets themselves, giving her control of gravity over a wide range. And Kamara herself had changed races from 9-head to 9-tail. It sounded kind of like a downgrade, but it wasn't. She previously held sway over 8 magical beasts, but now there was only one head controlling them. She held complete command over the menagerie. As before, 8 out of her 9 tails contained the will of a beast, so Kamara could also order them to act freely as well. Once she did, they would separate from her. Each of them had an EP count of around 200,000, but Kamara still kept her count at more than 1 million afterward. This wasn't a miscalculation, it just kind of worked this way. They were more than doubling their EP once they separated from her, which was clearly a pretty beefy upgrade. Kamara's new race didn't have divine elements to it, but her EP was close to 2 million with no extra gear, so I bet she could make the leap before too long. Her element was earth, like Geld, and she was a half-spiritual earth soul beast, so gravity was a good match for her. Looking solely at the stats, Kamara, when combined with all her beasts, was close to the upper echelon of the 12 lordly guardians. Sadly, however, she continued to lack experience. Soe would still beat her, but maybe she stood a chance against Adelman or Gabble? She clearly had some disturbing potential though, making her one of our best prospects. She was still young, after all. Let's see how she grows. My next visitors were Apito and Zijin, arriving as a pair. Apito came into my chamber first, leaving Zijin waiting in the hallway. I didn't mind having both of them in at once, but they were all about sticking to the one-on-one interview script, so I respected Zijin's wishes. The moment we were seated, Apito gave me a small gift-wrapped box. I have some freshly harvested honey for you, Sir Rimuru. Oh, how kind. Thanks. I smiled warmly. Her honey was a panacea, and even better, it tasted astonishingly good. The way I had immediately brought Milim under my thumb with just one taste was now a famous story among my companions. Real popular stuff. I was laughing heartily over the memory as I put the box in my pocket. I can't be bought with a bribe, mind you, but I did want to pay Apito back for the favor. Speaking of Apito, here was her current status. Name, Apito, EP, 775,537. Race, Star Wasp, mid-level Chaos Elemental Wind Soul Wasp. Protection, Zijin's Protection. Title, Insect Queen. Ability, Unique Skill Motherly Queen. Tolerances, Cancel Pain, Resist Melee Attack, Resist Natural Elements, Resist Ailments, Resist Spiritual Attack. If you asked a typical adventurer to take down a bug like this, they'd think you were stark raving mad. Apito's on-the-field strength was well beyond that of the old-school demon lords. She couldn't quite reach the special S ranking we defined here in Tempest, but she seemed stronger than the pseudo-awakened claimant I saw. What's more, Apito claimed that Motherly Queen allowed her to give birth to a total of 9 insectors. They were still in pupae form at the moment, but it looked like they'd be pretty powerful magic-born once they matured. Well, we should hold a celebration for them then. I would be happy to attend. And I hope you will bestow names upon them as well. Names, huh? Yes. I tried to change the subject, not wanting to commit myself to anything yet. A name could be a dangerous thing for me to give. That will not be a problem. I have gained the ability to fully control the procedure with no danger to you. You gained it? Well, I guess that was how it worked with cherries, so whatever. I was hoping to avoid having to name 9 at once, but if that's the way it is. Okay, how about 01, Reiji, Remy, Rion, Rigo, Rimu, Rina, Repa, and Reku. Please don't accuse me of laziness here. I knew this was little more than starting with 3, then going down the Japanese names for numbers, but she'd have to be satisfied with that. I didn't even know what gender they'd be yet. Once they were born, I'd pass out the names as appropriate, I suppose. Goodness. My children can feel the affection you have for them already. They're all delighted. They are? Yes, of course. My children and I are linked in our minds by powerful bonds. This was Dominate Insect in action, the skill that let Apido give orders to the children she produced, and the speed of these transmissions was apparently instantaneous. Unlike the more general-purpose thought communication, the links also made it clear who was giving the orders and who was taking them. That sounded neat to me, but Seal sure had been griping at me a lot the past few moments. What was up with that? How upsetting. All I'm asking for is permission to run ability adjust. You guessed it, Seal was itching to dive into Apido's skill set too. I was sure it could just do it anyway without my or Apido's permission though. If I was connected to someone via a soul corridor, I kept the right to as leader, after all. But this wasn't some kind of urgent crisis. We were at peace, and Dr. Seal was kind enough not to act out of line without my okay. Apido was also in Zijin's family line, which made me more of a distant relation by comparison. I figured getting her position would make things easier, given our weaker link. So, knowing full well what the answer would be, I posed the question. By the way, Apido, if you're interested, I'd like to readjust the future direction of your skills, but what do you think? How do you mean? Well, I was told that, I can see that your skill set has the potential to be further evolved. You could become a commander type, leading the insects as you do now and directing your clan in battle, or you could become a champion type, leading them yourself into the fray. The difference between the two is simply that you can continue spawning new follower insects as a commander, but not as a champion. On the other hand, being a champion would boost your physical abilities, and your skills would be geared more toward battle as well. I parroted out everything Dr. Seal had told me. That's when I realized why Seal didn't just do it. There were two distinct possibilities to choose from, and Apido had the choice. If it wasn't her call, her skills would never unlock their full potential. That, I added, and you have the option to stay as you are, of course. If I chose champion type, Apido immediately responded, that means I would never bear children again? Does it? The birth insect ability of Motherly Queen would be lost, but her non-skill-based reproductive ability would be retained. She could still give birth to successors. No, I think you'd be able to have kids like normal. You'll just have to do it the traditional, no-skill way. I see. In that case, I have nothing to worry about. My children have obtained the birth kinfolk skill, so as queen of my army, I can have them create as many troops as I desire. Ah, so Apido's already given part of her skills to her kin? In that case. Therefore, I think I would like to stand on the front lines myself. She made exactly the declaration I'd thought she would. And Seal, eagerly awaiting this moment, sprang into action. Apido's ability adjust is successful. Her unique skill Motherly Queen is being evolved into the ultimate skill Proserpine. It was over in a moment. The whole thing didn't take a second. I guess Seal had everything analyzed in advance. Okay, it's fine. Now your job's to check over everything and make sure you can use it to the hilt. The ultimate skill Proserpine featured abilities like Hasten Thought, Magic Sense, Keen Sense, Dominate Insect, Army Command, Ultra Speed Action, Lethal Attack, Control Space, and Multi-Layer Barrier. These were just boosted versions of powers she already had, so I was sure Apido was comfortable with them. I was sure she'd train all of them without my ordering her to, but I gave her that piece of advice anyway. I am filled with elation and gratitude. With this sheer joy in my heart, I once again declare my exclusive loyalty to you, Sir Rimuru. Apido kneeled on the floor. I gave her the most fatherly nod I could, and our interview came to a close. So she left, and Zijin came in. He humbly picked a wooden chair to sit on, rather than my guest's sofa. The strongest dude in the whole labyrinth, but he was so polite and thoughtful as well. I guess his exoskeleton would scratch up the leather, so that's why he'd made that move. How refined. I have to say though, Zijin did an incredible job for us. Powerful beyond measure, he could have formed a twin barrier with Diablo even before being evolved. He was already a level above the rest of the 12 lordly guardians, and this new evolution only added to that. In fact, looking at the Labyrinth archives, he defeated Dino without even revealing his full abilities. Scary kid. Honestly, I'm glad he's on our side. Zijin, you performed brilliantly for us. If you hadn't woken up in time, I'm not sure how it would have turned out. Oh, don't be silly. You no doubt calculated the exact time I would awaken, didn't you, Sir Rimuru? Yeah, sure I did. Not really, no. I did suspect Dino of wrongdoing, yes, but I didn't think he'd take action just when we were the most lightly guarded. Hehehe. And that's why you had me wake up exactly when things would come to a head then? No, man, I didn't think any of that would happen. Like, I didn't even know Velgrind was there, like, I did, but I wasn't expecting her to enter the scene the way she did. If I knew that, I never would have thought about taking my inner circle to go talk with the Emperor. That choice had us playing catch-up this entire war, and we emerged with the win only because luck was on our side. But no matter how I explained matters to him, Zijin thought everything was part of my so-called brilliant plan. I quickly gave up on convincing him otherwise. Either way, thanks for being there. You helped a lot. No, I still have so far to go. I am sure, Sir Rimuru, you could have finished Dino with a single transdimensional attack without my entering the scene at all. But you provided me with a stage to perform on nonetheless, and I answered the call for you. What are you talking about? Transdimensional? What? I can't do that, dude. I mean, what kind of monster am I in his mind anyway? Sure. Yeah, maybe I could have, yes. Ha. It would have been child's play for you, I am sure. Zijin eagerly agreed with my half-hearted reply. I felt like he looked at me with much more than mere respect. To him, it was like getting a personal audience with his god. Not that I could really tell, given his compound eyes and all, but it was easy to imagine. Gathering myself, I continued with Zijin's interview. He gave me his interpretation of the fight against Dino, and while I thought Dino had gotten away scot-free from them, it turned out that wasn't the case. Zijin assumed he'd try to flee, and so he placed a curse on him, a scary curse, one that had life and death power over the guy. So that's what Zijin could do now. How did he evolve, exactly? Name, Zijin, EP, 4,988,856. Race, Microgod, High-Level Chaos Elemental Water Soul Insect. Protection, Rimuru's Protection. Title, Mist Lord. Magic, Water Soul Magic. Ability, Ultimate Skill Mephisto, Lord of Illusion. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Resist Chaos Attack. Whoa. I kept myself from yelping out loud. The stats seal read out for me were far beyond my imagination. Zijin was now divine in nature, and I could see why. His existence points were a hair away from 5 million, a shocking figure second only to Benimaru. His element was water, but Seal informed me he could wield the space element as well. As a half-spiritual life form, he had every resistance you could think of. I saw 0 weak points, and he was high level in all of them as well. A real powerhouse. It seemed that Zijin could construct a placeholder body for himself by gathering and condensing the water particles in the air. The magisteel I gave him had evolved to adamantite, then crimson steel, and it was that fantastical metal that had let him pull off that trick. I'm sure he stuck to his exoskeleton by default because that's the form I crafted for him. Otherwise, he might have shown it off long ago and ascended to a completely spiritual life form. He obviously had a great fondness for his current body, and I couldn't be happier to see that. Plus, given how he was geared for close-quarters combat, he was more than strong enough as he stood now. After all, that combat style wouldn't work if he went fully spiritual and shed his physical body. In fact, his current form was about as complete as it needed to be, wasn't it? Exactly. This Zijin is our greatest masterpiece, as crafted by myself and my master. I allowed Veldora to lead the project, but I guided him with my knowledge in key sections, so there is nothing to worry about. I'm not sure I understood all of that. Not that Seal cared, bragging away as it was. Zijin held rule over water, which meant he boasted unparalleled strength wherever water was present. This included the water vapor in the atmosphere, which meant he held a battle advantage well near anywhere on the planet that contained air. Water composes a hefty percentage of most living creatures too, and Zijin could freely manipulate that as well. I thought that made it clear how much of a bad dude he was now. The human body's around 65% water, in fact, and any human trying to take Zijin on was basically committing suicide. But that was only the beginning of the danger he posed. Zijin's ultimate skill Mephisto included a wealth of high-level skills, such as Hasten Thought, Universal Detect, Lord's Ambition, Dominate Water and Lightning, Dominate Dimensions, Multidimensional Barrier, All of Creation, Spiritual Domination, and Fantastical World. Quite a few of those were fearsomely lethal, but nothing on that list had caused the curse placed on Dino. That was the work of something called Dream End. The curse was an art woven by Zijin himself, not any skill. That meant it'd even work against Yuki's anti-skill. Fending it off required a powerful will, and I doubted anyone could outwill Zijin right now. Anti-skill, after all, was a technique driven by three separate abilities: Dominate Water and Lightning, Dominate Spirit, and Fantastical World. He'd use Fantastical World to create an environment favorable to him, a place where he was all but invincible. This was a world-type ability, Seal told me, and those were exceedingly rare. Not even I had one, and I bet they're pretty neat things to have. Would you like me to set one up? I wasn't sure what the correct answer was, so I pretended not to hear it. But back to Dream End. This move made it possible for the caster to immediately snuff out the life of the target whenever they did something the caster didn't want. It couldn't forcibly restrict the target's movements, however, so it wouldn't take effect until their behavior triggered it. In this case, Dino was free to do whatever, as long as he didn't defy Zijin's will. So how do you trigger this curse? Well, I don't have to do anything. The moment Dino takes a certain predefined action, it will automatically go off. Zijin's curse was the automatic type, requiring no supervision. If triggered, he'd be made aware of it, but otherwise he never even had to think about it. The key to it all lay in what Dino did. What was the trigger? Basically, if he ever showed the intent to kill any of my companions, the curse would go off. The moment he committed to murdering any of them, it would destroy his very heart core, and not even a spiritual life form could escape that trap. Now, this wasn't foolproof. It wasn't like I remembered the name and face of every single citizen of Tempest. But if he tried some large-scale, indiscriminate attack on the city, that'd be treated as murderous intent, and I think that worked well enough as a check on Dino. I was amazed we could restrain someone with an ultimate skill like that. Wonderful work, Zijin. Anything that reduces the threat to our nation is more than welcome. I appreciate the compliment, my lord. I still have much to learn, but nothing warms my soul more than receiving such kind words from you. Geez. So serious. Him, Cherries, Geld, and Soe. Beretta too, I suppose. I guess I had a lot of all business types in my crew, but Geld and Zijin really took the cake. Geez, with so much talent like that, never resting on their laurels, constantly putting in hard effort, and that's why they became such a threat with every new breakthrough they made. I hoped they'd continue that pursuit for a long while to come. So, to sum up, Mephisto was one firecracker of an ultimate skill. Dino had no way to undo the curse on himself, I was assured, but you could never say never in this world. Maybe he had some unknown ability that had let him slip out of it like a loosely knotted rope. But even if he did, that wouldn't harm Zijin's rep at all. It'd just mean we were dealing with a shrewd enemy. Because, honestly, Zijin was the best all-around package I could think of. He took advantage of the brief moment Dino was dead to place that curse on him, and I thought that was where his real scary genius lay. Having fancy pants skills isn't a threat, being able to fully leverage them is, and along those lines, I didn't think anyone was better geared for battle and more attuned to his skills than Zijin. Maybe call it covering all the bases? Many people in this world boasted skills that boosted their already extensive abilities, but Zijin's skill set was more about covering for what he wasn't intrinsically good at. He could use all of them well, even working them into new, original moves. Amazing. What else could I say? The battle sense he had and the level of training it took. He could bust out fantastical world, create an advantage, and expand his tactical edge rather than boost what he was already great at. Truly top class among my companions. I realized now that not even a so-called fighting race like the primal demons could beat Zijin. He was just so fearsome. No wonder Seal called this its masterpiece. Even the strength he showed off up to now was no doubt just a tiny glimpse into everything he had. I suppose it's a little unfair of me though, getting to check on all my team's stats and abilities, but still. I had given Zijin the fairly generic name, Miss Lord, but now I could see a double meaning there. Besides, Mist, there was also quite a bit mysterious about the depth of his abilities. Or maybe Zijin took Mist literally and steered his skills in that water-oriented direction? No way. Dr. Seal would have said so if he did. Right? Of course. Oh, great. That slight delay in the response worried me a lot. Hiding the concerns in my mind that Seal was going off-kilter on me, I waited for my next interviewee. Adelman was the next person in my chamber. Sir Rimuru, I hope you are well. And let me tell you that I, Adelman, am cherishing every moment of this private audience with you already. Adelman was something beyond serious. I just nodded and motioned him toward my sofa. If I didn't make him wrap up his spiel fast, he'd be at it all day, so I sat him down as quickly as I could. So how are you feeling now that you're awake? Excellent, sir. My spirit feels enriched, and I can feel holy force penetrating every pore of my body. He really did have a glow to him too. I feared what I was about to discover. Name, Adelman, EP, 877,333. Race, white, mid-level chaos elemental light soul bones. Protection, Rimuru's protection. Title, Gehenna Lord. Magic, necromancy, holy magic. Ability, ultimate gift Necronomicon. Tolerances, cancel melee attack, cancel spiritual attack, cancel ailments, cancel natural elements, resist chaos attack. Thought so. Here he was, this servant of the dead, and he'd gone all in on the light element. If I had to name the one person on my team who looked the most like a demon lord, it'd have to be Adelman. Seeing him boast the light element was almost too sweetly ironic. Still, given that he could use holy evil inversion to twist his elements any way he wanted, maybe it wasn't worth being surprised about at that point. It felt like the exact opposite from the element he should have, but no point fretting about it. There was a lot of other stuff about him to occupy my attention anyway. He had the existence points of an awakened demon lord. His stats were so ridiculous that I was getting a headache just looking at them. But the biggest issue was Necronomicon, his ultimate skill. Where did it even come from? I gave it to him. I didn't need to ask. I couldn't think of any other explanation, but yes, Ciel was fiddling around again. And the best thing of all is Necronomicon, this power you gave me, Adelman happily noted. It is a font of knowledge for me, the very root of my newfound strength. Necronomicon included a bevy of abilities: Hasten Thought, Universal Detect, Lord's Ambition, Cast Cancel, Analyze and Assess, All of Creation, Mental Strike, Holy Evil Inversion, and Dominate Dead. In addition to things he already had, he could now also invoke necromancy and holy magic with no casting time required. In addition, his rule and protection over the dead had been boosted, giving his armies a jolt of additional force. Adelman was gleefully explaining all of this to me now, and if he was happy about it, so was I. I didn't want to rain on his parade. By the way, Necronomicon is in the same family as Grimoire, the skill I gave to Ghidorah. I removed the items unsuited for Adelman from Grimoire and added abilities he would find more useful. Seal sounded like it was fishing for compliments. That was the first I'd heard about it giving Ghidorah any new abilities. Amazing, certainly, but I wasn't sure I welcomed this news. Clearing my mind for a moment though, I recalled that Adelman and Ghidorah were both researcher types. They were close friends as well, I'd heard, and they'd often go diving into magic tomes together. They were magic-obsessed maniacs, really, but they weren't hurting anyone, so I let them do as they pleased. They might discover the meaning of life or something for all I knew, and devoting yourself to your passions is never a bad thing. As Seal put it, Necronomicon and Grimoire were natural complements to each other. They certainly seemed to suit those two well, and yeah, I guess this was the right move to make. That was the end of Adelman's interview, and now I was headed down to see how Alberto and Venti were doing. They were so awed by the idea of meeting with me that they'd initially turned down the request. Apparently they needed to prove themselves more in battle before they'd feel deserving of the chance. It was beyond dedicated of them. In fact, I couldn't understand the logic at all. Who did they think I was anyway? Still, I had to check up on the people serving me. Alberto was Adelman's dedicated servant, and so was Venti, or call her Adelman's pet, if you like. If their master ever died, they'd probably take the ride with him, but as long as Adelman was all right, they were immortal. That, Seal told me, was why it had granted both of them an ultimate skill. It took a lot of work. I'm sure it did. But it's your hobby, right? No doubt this was just Seal's gentle personality manifesting itself. Trusting in that, I looked over the stat reports. Name, Alberto, EP, 682,639 plus 600,000 for his spirit sword, race, white, mid-level chaos elemental flame salman. Protection, Rimuru's protection. Title, Gehenna Paladin. Ability, Ultimate Gift Immortality. Tolerances, cancel melee attack, cancel spiritual attack, cancel ailments, cancel natural elements, resist chaos attack. Name, Venti, EP, 984,142. Race, Gehenna Dragon, Protection, Rimuru's protection. Title, Dragon Lord of the Underworld. Ability, Ultimate Gift Eternality. Tolerances, cancel melee attack, cancel spiritual attack, cancel ailments, cancel natural elements, resist chaos attack. The effects of their evolution certainly goosed their EP. They also cancelled a lot of attacks now, their resistances were looking real sharp. It worked that way for Adelman as well, so I guess dying once could earn you a bunch of those. The ultimate gifts they had were largely identical, despite having different names. It included the three abilities Hasten Thought, Full Reincarnation, and Servant Immortality. There was room for more, but Seal told me it was still considering the options. I still wasn't completely thrilled about giving Seal carte blanche, but I was reasonably certain it wasn't the wrong move to make. Alberto's and Venti's bodies would never perish, because their souls were in Adelman's possession. I'd had a hunch they'd kick it if Adelman did, and I was right, but given Adelman's undead status, they all seemed pretty invincible to me. I couldn't help but wonder how unfair a team I had. Alberto, by the way, still had a lot of room to grow. A weapon that broke 1,000,000 EP was firmly in the god class, so if Alberto's own EP kept rising, that'd open him up to more capabilities. Given how handy he was with a blade, I didn't think we'd have to wait too long, and it was with great anticipation for the future that I saw Adelman off. After lunch, I went back to the interviews. At long last, it was Xian's turn. Finally, Sir Rimuru, I am here. I am sorry it took this long. Right, I said, nodding. I wasn't really waiting for her with bated breath, but I'd better not say that. Name, Xian, EP, 4,229,140 plus 1.08 million for her Garikimaru Divine. Race, high-level Chaos Elemental Battle Soul Ogre. Protection, Rimuru's Protection. Title, Warlord. Magic, Divine Battle Will. Ability, Unique Skill Master Chef. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Resist Chaos Attack. She proudly went over her new powers. Seal was providing me a running explanation as well, but the two of them rarely agreed with each other. Xian's strength didn't rely on skills. Her weapon was God class, so she didn't need an ultimate skill to hold her own against someone who did. Her body itself was a threat, and with infinite regeneration, that threat became a nightmare. You could try to drain her energy in a fight, but her EP was as out of the park as Benimaru's. That meant a huge number of magicules, so attempting to exhaust her was a bad idea. Her resistances were perfect as well, making a frontal onslaught your only option, and if that's all her opponents could try, I really sympathized with them. You've gotten stronger, huh? Hee hee. I'm humbled to see you think so. Humbled wasn't the way I'd describe her abject joy. But it was the truth, just one thing, considering all the ultimates my crew had now, I was kind of surprised Xian still had nothing but a unique skill. Did she turn you down or something, Seal? No. Xian is still packed with untold potential, so I am carefully observing her for the time being. The unique skill Master Chef is incomparably powerful as it stands now, so there is no special need to do anything else right away. Yeah, no doubt about that. Lately, I thought I'd grown adept at reading Seal's emotions. It was just a gut feeling, but it turned out accurate pretty often, and if I was reading Seal correctly right now, I'd say it was hesitant about messing with Xian's skills. That is correct. Wonders never cease around here. I asked why, and Seal reluctantly gave me the answer. Amazingly enough, if Xian's skill was boosted any further, she might obtain abilities capable of killing even me. Seal, seeing that as something to avoid, opted to shut off any further skill evolution on her instead. If a skill freak like Seal opted for that, well, I guess this was no joke. It was hard to picture Xian ever trying to hurt me, but giving her skills that scary gave me pause as well. I didn't want to be saddled with problems like that, so I supported Seal's decision. After her stat check, I enjoyed chatting with Xian a while longer, listening to all her bragging and politely throwing in a yes or oh neat now and then. Xian had put in a stellar effort during our war against the Imperial forces, and I thought it was nice to sit down from time to time and talk about things like this. Looking back, I realized I was either angry or exasperated with Xian a lot of the time. I knew full well that she was always working hard, and the fruits of all that effort were starting to show up, but she really did have a penchant for going way overboard, so I couldn't help but poke at her all the time. That's why an occasional calm, pleasant conversation like this was nice, I thought. So there I was, playing the father figure to Xian, when... Oh, right. I had forgotten to mention this in my report, but I ran into Masayuki at the dining hall just now. He was looking rather downtrodden. And given how troubled he seemed, I advised him to talk things over with you soon, Sir Rimuru. Don't act all smug about that, Xian. There she goes, acting out of line again, and if Masayuki was in trouble, I knew I didn't want to get too involved with it either. But this was exactly it. She was always butting in where she shouldn't, and I paid for it in the end. I hated being dragged into stuff like this. Like, Velgrind showing up here after she vanished was enough of a surprise, but really, if you sat down and thought about it, she had no reason to be there, did she? She was just crossing dimensions in pursuit of Ladora. She had only one person waiting for her. And, ugh, Masayuki looks identical to Ladora too. It didn't take a genius to connect the dots at this point. But even though I couldn't betray the trust Shion had in me. We'll have to work out a time then. I was just delaying the inevitable, but I said it anyway. Oh, all set there, Shion told me matter-of-factly. I set up a meeting first thing tomorrow morning. Well, I'm not all set in the slightest. You want to stage a full meeting before we've even prepared for it? Now this was getting blown way out of proportion. These sorts of problems always happened when Shion played intermediary. You could never let your guard down around her. But who was even gonna join this meeting? I was in the midst of my man-to-man interviews, and now look at what had happened. I still had all the demons to meet with. If I didn't finish things up today, we'd have to postpone it for some other day that may never come. Would that anger them? Or drive them to violence? I just didn't know. All right. In that case, tell Rigard and Benimaru to be fully prepared for the meeting. Very well. I'll be on my way then. Shion all but skipped out of my chambers. Bringing a head to my hand, I hurriedly called for Diablo and his cohorts. The last people on the interview list were Diablo, Testarossa, Carrera, Ultima, and their underlings. I wasn't sure I'd get to them all, so I wanted to speed things up, but this turned out to be dangerous. Kahehehehe. I'm finally up, am I? You have no idea how long this wait has felt to me. Way to exaggerate. I had booted him out of my office yesterday afternoon. Quit acting stupid, Diablo. We still haven't settled our score, so it ought to be fine for me to see Sir Rimura first. Carrera, looking pretty beaten up and ragged, was at Diablo's throat, with Ultima not far behind. She's right. I haven't thrown in the towel yet, either, you know. Don't think you can weasel your way out of this. Ultima, too, was so hurt that I was amazed she could stand up. Wasn't their clothing part of their bodies, technically? If they were this ripped up and they didn't have the energy to restore them, it had to be a pretty serious injury, right? But they were still cheerfully bickering with one another. Demons really are built tough. Enough of this. Arguing in front of Sir Rimuru is simply rude. Testarossa finally intervened, bringing some much-needed quiet to the room. She acted so elegantly, ignoring the three quarreling demons and even providing some tea for me. Her outfit was in perfect order as well, presenting a kind of dignity that was otherwise absent. Now, Sir Rimuru, we were told that you'd fire Diablo and name one of us as your second secretary, but sadly, we have not completed the selection process yet. What do you think we should do? I really don't think I said that. Maybe leaving the demons for last was an error on my part. I now had extra work coming up thanks to Shion, but even before that, I still needed to report to King Gazelle. Looking back, I should have tackled my thorniest problems first, but it was far too late now. I was short on time, so let's exercise some of my soft power to get through this. Well, I hate to say this, but I've run out of time for a long conversation with you guys. I gotta call all your servants in too. No need for that, my lord. Yeah, I don't think you have to. It'd just go to waste on them. Right? If you want information about our underlings, I'll give you whatever you need. Exactly. And no servant of mine is foolish enough to try butting into the precious time you've devoted to us, Sir Rimuru. Diablo, Carrera, Ultima, and Testarossa replied to me with a smile. Okay, was about the best response I could muster. Seal 2 said there wasn't any major need to summon every single demon. Diablo and the three demonesses, it noted, had already said to go ahead, do whatever you want with us. That still felt like I was ignoring all the other demons, but Seal had a grasp of each of them already, which was news to me, but I convinced myself that of course it would. It had to manage all my people and stuff. So I moved on. Anyway, the first person I interviewed was Diablo, it goes without saying. Kicking the 3 others out of the room, I had him sit down. He could barely stay put in his seat, so excited he was. Name, Diablo, EP, 6,666,666. Race, Demon God, Primal Demon, Devil Lord. Protection, Rimuru's Protection. Title, Demon Lord. Magic, Dark Magic, Elemental Magic. Ability, Ultimate Skill Azazel, Lord of Temptation. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Resist Chaos Attack. Come on, was my first thought. The fact his EP was all the same number was a dead giveaway that he was gaming the system. I didn't say anything though, since Seal didn't. In the end, I didn't think there was much doubt that Diablo was the most powerful person in my entire hierarchy, between that EP, fake or not, and his resistances. His Azazel skill contained Hasten Thought, Lord's Ambition, Control Dimensions, Multidimensional Barrier, All of Creation, Dominate Punishment, Dominate Charm, and World of Temptation, mostly the same abilities I had. He carefully went over these with me, clearly looking for someone to brag about them with, and Dr. Seal gave him high marks for his understanding of them. Though, really, Diablo was stronger than me, wasn't he? Given how I couldn't really use my skills without Seal's help. His magicule count was immense, his level high, and the quality of his skills beyond question. He was an exceptionally omnipotent demon in every way, and why he decided to serve under me was a total mystery. He had an unquenchable thirst for battle, not to mention a fixation with me that bordered on problematic, but I enjoyed being able to count on his seemingly infinite stores of strength. With this evolution, I now wondered how he'd do in a practice battle against Zijin. I was sure it'd turn into a great fight. He and Benimaru too. I felt like Benimaru was always going easy on anyone he fought in training, in part because if he got real serious, it'd raise acres and acres of land and kill off thousands. But that was no issue in the labyrinth. I suppose Benimaru didn't enjoy revealing his skills much either, but still. Water would win over fire element-wise, so I'd think Zijin would have an edge over Benimaru, but there was no telling unless they actually duked it out. Then again, there was no need to rank my troops like this. I could just call Benimaru, Diablo, and Zijin my top 3, and that should keep any strife to a minimum. That was all I needed from Diablo. As for his servants, he told me that Ghidorah had joined Venom as his apprentice. Apprentice? Yes. Adding him to my team eliminates any worry that he'd betray us, you see. I thought we were safe from that by now, probably, but still, it was a relief to hear. Ghidorah was already kept in place by his role as Labyrinth Guardian, so Diablo wasn't free to make him his 24-hour gopher, but he didn't mind that. If he named Ghidorah an apprentice, I guess that meant he saw him as different from a run-of-the-mill lackey. That's good and all, but why did you sign him on? Well, he may lack suitable piety for you, Sir Rimuru, but his curiosity for magic is the real thing. He has potential by human standards, so I thought I would initiate him by interacting with his mysterious art of reincarnation. And then? Ha! Pathetically enough, he nearly died in our previous battle. That would go against your orders, Sir Rimuru, so I reincarnated him as a demon to prevent that, but oddly enough, he became a metal demon, a species I am unfamiliar with. Diablo stopped speaking for a moment. He turned toward me. I hadn't heard of that term either. Did I do something or what? Oh, that was me. What do you mean, oh? This was exactly why I wanted to hold these one-on-one discussions. Seal had been really busy, it sounded like. I really wished it'd think these things over more. If he was a metal demon, that sounded close to Beretta too. No need to worry about that. The concept is completely different. Good. Whatever. I wasn't going to get worked up over it. Not that I needed to, but either way, I was getting sick of all this. Maybe it's thanks to the little push I gave him? I had to be honest. There was no other option. This elated Diablo, as I expected, so we wound up talking about it for a while. Summing up, Diablo had taken a liking to Ghidorah as well. They had an ongoing promise that should something happen, the demon would have him join his family. Ghidorah was famously obsessed with magic, being the teacher of that magic-born Razen and all, and I was sure he wouldn't hesitate to become a demon to satisfy his intellectual curiosity. That's the kind of guy he was, and as long as he didn't bother me, it was best to let him have his way. Besides, I didn't mind having that old man nearby, either, so it was all good to me. It'd be gross if he started going around looking like Adelman though, so I made sure to officially forbid any Rimuru worship on his part. No way was I gonna allow another wacky cult member in my midst, apprentice of Diablo or not. All right. Well, he's your responsibility now, so take good care of him. Old man Ghidorah looked pretty aged to me, honestly. It felt kind of weird phrasing it that way, but then again, Diablo was even older, old enough that concepts like golden years were thrown right out the window. So maybe all of this was fine. Regardless, Diablo now had 2 personal assistants to watch over. With a bow, he left the room, Testarossa quickly taking his place. She was as elegant as ever as she sat down in front of me. I had no intention of following through on it, but part of me wondered if I really could name her my secretary. Actually, no. I'd need to name Diablo my chief diplomat then, and I was sure he'd go berserk in that role. I got enough problems already. Let's stick to this. Besides, I had other business with Testarossa. I wasn't sure how to bring it up yet, but before I could, she presented me with a sheet of paper. It contained statistics on the demons in her family. Name, Moss, EP, 1,079,397, Race, Demon Peer, Archduke. Protection, Blanc Clan. Title, Empress's Aid. Magic, Dark Magic, Elemental Magic. Ability, Unique Skill Gatherer. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Resist Chaos Attack. Name, CN, EP, 286,596, Race, Demon Peer, Viscount. Protection, Blanc Clan. Title, Empress's Secretary. Magic, Dark Magic, Elemental Magic. Ability, Unique Skill Recorder. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Cancel Natural Elements. That was the long and short of it, including some information that only I could read off them. Moss and CN had seen no direct action in our recent war. They weren't exposed to any danger, and thus they were saved from the ever-curious hands of Seal. As for Testarossa herself. Name, Testarossa, EP, 3,333,124. Race, Demon God, Primal Demon, Devil Lord. Protection, Rimuru's Protection. Title, Killer Lord. Magic, Dark Magic, Elemental Magic. Ability, Ultimate Skill Belial, Lord of the Underworld. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Resist Chaos Attack. Compared to before the fighting, her existence points had ballooned beyond comparison. It was a good 3 times the figure from back when she fought Velgrind on that airship. Looks like your magicule count grew a bunch, huh? It did. If it had done so in time for my climactic battle with Velgrind, I'm sure it would have been a more interesting performance. It's a pity. I'd hesitate on calling war a performance, all right? Not that she'd listen to me if I told her. My experiences here have really convinced me that in battle, quality matters much more than quantity. In this war too, battle experience sealed a lot more people's fates than magicule counts. Testarossa had put up a decent fight against Velgrind because they were both almost equal in experience level. She stood no chance in an extended fight, but she could drag it on and stall for time well enough, at least. If Testarossa's magicule stores were larger, that meant she was much more capable in battle now. That was tremendously reassuring, but it also placed even more responsibility on me to watch over her and ensure she didn't go out of control. I was leaving all that to Diablo at the moment, but now I thought I should pay a bit more attention to her. Belial though. It just oozed a sense of danger, much like Testarossa herself. It had a pretty handy slate of abilities: Hasten Thought, Universal Detect, Lord's Ambition, Control Dimensions, Multidimensional Barrier, All of Creation, Dominate Life, and World of the Dead. Yep, another world-type ability, and judging by the name, World of the Dead, I wouldn't subject myself to it for $1 billion. I'd let Seal maintain that one for me, I think. Scary. So if you wanted to talk alone with me, is this about something that can't be stated in public? What would that be exactly? Testarossa, after handing me the stats on Moss and Cien, got right down to business. I was glad she was so quick on the uptake. Mentally flipping the page, I brought up an issue of mine, the meeting we'd have with Masayuki tomorrow morning. I'd like to think I'm reading too much into it, but I wanted to bring something up with you. I'm actually going to be meeting with Masayuki and his people, but I'm not sure how to approach it. Ah, I see. Is this about how we'll deal with the Empire? Again, so quick on the uptake. It was surprising. Yes, exactly. I guess he's pretty troubled about it, and if they're asking me for solutions, I don't really know what to give them, sort of. I doubted Xion had thought even that far, but assuming Masayuki was the reborn Emperor Ladora, that still didn't mean they'd just let him take the throne. We still didn't know where the current Emperor Ladora, or the now transformed Michael, had run off to. If Masayuki was to name himself the leader. But then again, I was sure he'd do anything to get out of that obligation, and it'd be weird for my nation to push him in that direction. Besides, there was no breaking Michael's castle guard ability as long as people put their faith in Ladora, so we'd also need to consider how we'd handle the Empire's citizens. Worst of all, I was given, zero time for this. Trying to smooth things over with King Gazelle would be hard enough. But this was even worse. Like I kept on saying, I didn't want to get too involved in any of it, but I doubted I'd be afforded the luxury. In that case, allow me to join the talks. The eastern lands the Empire calls home used to be my domain. As your diplomatic attaché, I wouldn't hesitate to help with this. Sweet. How reliable she was turning out to be. I couldn't leave something like this to Seal alone. I could relay whatever solution it came up with, but I'd still need people on the ground to execute it. And even if Seal was absolutely correct, if the Empire refused to accept it, we'd have to go for something else. Unless we were gonna make the Empire a vassal state of Tempest, I didn't think we had the right to meddle in the administrations of other countries. Along those lines, I was sure Testarossa had the mental powers to deal with whatever came up. She did well with the Western nations, and once we came up with our direction, I'd feel safe leaving the rest to her. Okay, see you tomorrow morning, then. Very well. I am on the job. Testarossa's smile reassured me once again. I was feeling a tad better. That was all I had for her, so I stood up to see her out the door when, Sir Rimuru, there was one more thing I wanted to report. Oh. As I think you recall, the former Imperial General Caligulio has filed a request for clemency. That jogged my memory. It was another theory issue, but I didn't see anything impossible with his request. All right. Why don't we deal with that right now? Good thing Testarossa had remembered for me. Her attention to detail was another reason I felt so secure with her. So, hoping to finish up that job before dinner, I joined her on the way to our research lab. There were 2 people to go. After a quick meal, I called in Ultima. I was about to die waiting for you, she said, all cutesy as she plopped onto the sofa. It made me smile a bit. I'm sure she'd make a darling little sister for someone. It made me want to break out some tea, along with a few of my favorite cookies. Ooh. Oh. You do that for me, Sir Rimuru? He. Hey, I can make tea too, you know. Not very good tea, but still. Hell, I could even make some coffee. Or, really, I could turn on a coffee maker. When it came to fancier approaches, even Xian could do a better job. It's sad, but that's the truth. Xian was actually pretty decent at making both tea and coffee these days. I tried myself, since it wasn't nice to constantly complain about other people's cooking, but it's harder than it looks. I'd gotten takeout pretty much all the time in my previous life. Cooking a meal from scratch was something I had zero experience with. Work kept me too busy for it, and considering all the dishes and cleaning up, it just wasn't worth it efficiency-wise. So the kitchen in my apartment was just as spotless as when I'd first moved in. I'd buy a cookbook occasionally, figuring I'd give something a whirl when I was free, but of course I never did. That memory was serving me well now, at least, so I guess it wasn't a total waste of money. Regardless, if all it involved was grinding some beans and adding hot water, even I could whip up some coffee. Oh, not at all. I'm more than satisfied just with this tea. If she was that happy about it, then so was I. Well, no need to say no to coffee though. It'll take some time, but we can talk in the meantime. I wanted some as well, so I put a filter in the maker and added hot water. This whole coffee maker setup was the work of Kaijin, and mass-produced versions were now on the market, so the cafes were doing pretty decent business too. The fragrant aroma of coffee beans filled the air as I presented as suave and sophisticated an air as I could to Testarossa. I was sure this would do wonders for my rep. Making good impressions about things like this was so important. I personally find it petty. And I personally don't give a crap. This was a broad, advanced strategy, nothing petty about it. Besides, there was no point acting all strong around a bunch of battle-addicted primals who lived for war every waking moment. Better to compete with them in a different genre entirely. Ah. You have already showed your dignity to them well enough, so I feel you do not need to worry. It's fine, all right? I didn't mean to look dignified in their minds in the first place. But it didn't matter. Let's get back on topic. So can I hear your report, then? Certainly. First, let me give you this. I was given a written outline of her clan stats. Name, Veron. EP, 882,869. Race, Demon Peer, Duke. Protection, Violet Clan. Title, Poison Princess's Butler. Magic, Dark Magic, Elemental Magic. Ability, Ultimate Gift Artist. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Resist Chaos Attack. Name, Zonda. EP, 301,316. Race, Demon Peer, Viscount. Protection, Violet Clan. Title, Poison Princess's Chef. Magic, Dark Magic, Elemental Magic. Ability, Unique Skill Fusionist. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Resist Chaos Attack. Veron's strength grabbed my attention first, but what really threw me was Zonda's unique skill fusionist. This wasn't in the same family as Xian's wacky master chef skill. Instead, it was designed for situational awareness and supporting allies. Via its fusing process, it could heal any sort of wound on anyone. It didn't meddle with the laws of cause and effect the way Xian's skill did, so that was a relief. Next up, Ultima herself. Name, Ultima. EP, 2,668,816. Race, Demon God, Primal Demon, Devil Lord. Protection, Rimuru's Protection. Title, Pain Lord. Magic, Dark Magic, Elemental Magic. Ability, Ultimate Skill Samel, Lord of Deathly Poison. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Resist Chaos Attack. Ultima, much like Testarossa, had grown a lot, and her magicule count had been constantly rising since her evolution completed. She was well into million-class territory, but how much stronger would she get? I was glad to have her on my team, but too much would be a threat. And we can't forget about Ultima's abilities, either. The ultimate skill Samel gave her Hasten Thought, Universal Detect, Lord's Ambition, Control Dimensions, Multidimensional Barrier, Detect Weakness, Craft Poison, World of Destruction. All geared for killing, huh? Craft Poison was the nastiest of them. Combine it with Detect Weakness, and she could instantly create just the right poison to kill her opponent. But I was even more curious about World of Destruction. It was a vicious world-level ability, one that could unconditionally kill anyone and anything except for spiritual life forms. Kind of a supercharged version of my own merciless skill, I think. It wouldn't work against the truly powerful, so maybe it was best to have that one sealed away. Ultima, my apologies, I began, pouring coffee into a cup to calm myself down. What about? So, about your World of Destruction ability. Yes? She gladly accepted the cup I handed to her. I had to come out with it now or I never would. You're banned from using it. All right. I was just thinking that I didn't need it anyway. I guess you really can read my mind, Sir Rimuru. Huh. Oh, yeah. Of course, right? Ha ha ha. I laughed it off as I internally thanked my lucky stars. I'm not sure why, but I guess Ultima wanted to stay hands-off with World of Destruction. But maybe it should have been obvious. She was such a battle-obsessed girl that winning every single battle by default probably didn't excite her. If she was willing to accept that, then wonderful. Relieved, I sat down and enjoyed some conversation for a while. My final interviewee was Carrera. Let me tell you, my lord, if you didn't step in to help me, I'm not sure I could have ever beaten Kondo. That man was real strong. I can hardly believe he was human. She ended her report with a light laugh. Seal had told me this much, but hearing it from Carrera's own mouth made it even more vivid. She had won that battle by the tiniest of margins, and her praise for him was the unvarnished truth. And she was right, Kondo was something else. Benimaru had taken out Granite, number 3 in the Empire's internal list, but even he was pretty wary of Kondo. In fact, he was confident he could have beaten anyone in the Empire except for that guy. Taking out a menace like that would have been a feather in anyone's cap, really. But Carrera said it was all thanks to the power she was granted. Receiving my body, surpassing my limits, evolving further from that. I've done nothing but take. I want to repay the favor. I'd like you to understand that my loyalty forever belongs to you. Carrera usually had an arrogant streak a mile long, but this was probably a more sincere side of her. I mean, a primal demon born in antiquity should really outclass a freshly born demon lord, but regardless of that loyalty, I knew exactly how to reply. Well, keep up the good work, then. By this point, if you weren't here for me, our entire court system would collapse. Monsters really did tend to follow the will of the strong. Anyone could arrest a criminal, but judging them required someone powerful to fill the post. I'd like to institute a jury-style system in the future so we could leave cases to the people outside of serious, vicious crimes, but that would come once our nation was stable. Tempest was still a developing country, so Carrera's strength was helping me a lot right now. Oh, I'd be glad to. I'll do whatever you ask of me, and I know my clan will too. She seemed to relish the chance. I then looked over her overview of her clan and their stats, to be exact, Ajira's and Esprits. Name, Ajira. EP, 733,575. Race, Demon Peer, Marquis. Protection, John Clan. Title, Tyrant's Master. Magic, True Battle Will. Ability, Ultimate Gift Blade Transform. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Resist Chaos Attack. Name, Esprit. EP, 552,137. Race, Demon Peer, Count. Protection, John Clan. Title, Tyrant's BFF. Magic, Dark Magic, Elemental Magic. Ability, Unique Skill Observer. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Resist Chaos Attack. Pretty good. Like, this met the old standard for demon lords, didn't it? Ajira was equivalent to the pseudo-awakened Clayman, and if I had to guess, he'd win if he fought him back then. I really felt like this business of having multiple old demon lord level underlings working for you was wrong in some way. I also wondered what Tyrant's BFF meant. Carrera had given her that title, so I assumed that's what their relationship was. Esprit was kind of like a net-savvy, fashion-conscious teen in some ways, and they certainly acted like fast friends together. It was less a master-servant thing and more like two girls from different years in the same high school. Carrera, it felt to me, treated her clan a lot different than other demons did. But the real surprises came next. Carrera herself was insane. Name, Carrera. EP, 7,013,351 plus 3.37 million for her golden gun. Race, Demon God, Primal Demon, Devil Lord. Protection, Rimuru's Protection. Title, Menace Lord. Magic, Dark Magic, Elemental Magic. Ability, Ultimate Skill Abaddon, Lord of Destruction. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Resist Chaos Attack. More magicules than Diablo? It made my eyes turn into little dots. Her growth had finally come to a stop, but she was clearly on top among my troops. But even scarier was Abaddon. Its abilities included Hasten Thought, Universal Detect, Lord's Ambition, Control Dimensions, Multidimensional Barrier, Surpass Boundary, and Dimension Rupture, nothing world level but all suited for attack force. Dimension Rupture, in particular, could work its way through distortion fields to kill off enemies. If Carrera combined destructive magic with her own power and topped it off with this ability, only a very few people could withstand it, I think. It could even destroy the floors of Ramirez's labyrinth, which further proved how crazy it was. Frankly, not even I wanted to fight her any longer. You're stronger now. My true feelings fell from my lips. Yes, thanks to you. That, and to Kondo for ceding this to me. I want to kill Emperor Ladora for his sake as well. I almost said, right, until I remembered. Kondo, too, was being controlled by Michael that whole time. Actually, the real Ladora is no longer in this world. Or, well, a lot of stuff's happened, but the Ladora you fought was actually a skill that took over Ladora's body for its own purposes. I explained to her that Ladora was actually Michael, the Monus body. She nodded, unsurprised. I see. And that's why that bastard Feldway called Ladora by the name Michael? Now it makes sense, my lord. Glad to hear. I definitely didn't want her picking a fight with Masayuki by mistake. Making sure that was clear with her, I ended the interview. But just as Carrera was about to exit, she turned around. Oh, I forgot. There's this thing I needed to tell you about, my lord. What is it? I asked, taking a sip of coffee. To be honest, I wasn't sure whether to tell you. If Carrera was this distressed about it, it must be something big. Maybe I should invite her to sit down again. But it looks like Ajira was once Hakuro's grandfather. Pfft. I almost did a comedy spit take there. That was avoided just in time, but if it was something that's shocking, I wished she wouldn't just float that up on the way out the door. That. Hey, Carrera. Ha ha ha. Pretty serious stuff, eh? It's more than I can handle, so I wanted to leave the decision on what to do with him to you. And with that, she smiled and left the room, tossing the ball into my court. I was sure that was a smile of relief, now that the load had been taken off her shoulders. But I couldn't ignore this news. Diablo and the Demonesses said I didn't need to interview their clan members, but Ajira definitely deserved an audience later. He'd have to wait though, as I needed time to gather my thoughts. For now, at least, the one-on-one interviews were over. I had our meeting with Masayuki the next day, so that was all the work for today, but it wasn't like I needed sleep. So I reverted to my casual, comfortable slime form and climbed under the covers. I always found sitting in the dark like this oddly comforting. In that case, I will now give you my report. I'm off work for today. This report involves my master's skills. It is not work. Seal might see that stuff as a hobby, but to me, it wasn't much different from work. Not that it'd listen to me. I'm sure I needed to know about it, so let's give up for now. I was actually looking forward to it a little, in fact. Better brace myself, no doubt it was gonna be something ridiculous. My latest round of skill and ability integrations went extremely comfortably for me. I wrapped them all up without being forced into sleep mode, and while it took a day and a half to cover everyone, I was still lucid and alert enough to conduct all the interviews I had scheduled. And why not? Seal had asked me to invoke ability adjust in the middle of battle, and no way would it allow me to go offline in that situation. If it did, I'd be really pissed off. So I asked Seal in my mind to go ahead, and the data began flowing in. Name, Rimuru Tempest. EP, 8,681,123 plus 2.28 million for his dragon sword. Race, highest level Chaos Elemental Ultimate Slime. Patronage, Grace of Friendship. Title, Chaos Creator. Magic, True Dragon Magic, High-level Spirit Summoning, High-level Demon Summoning, Others. Ability, Monas Seal. Intrinsic Skills, Universal Detect, Dragon Soul Aura, Universal Shapeshift. Ultimate Skill Azathoth, Lord of the Void. Ultimate Skill Shub-Niggurath, Lord of Abundance. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Resist Chaos Attack. That's how I turned out. It didn't really feel this way to me, but I was sportin' some serious EP there. Add in my straight sword, and I was pushing 10 million. I was well used to this weapon by now, and it sure lived up to its god rating. It had transformed its shape, influenced by the unique traits of my species, and for now I was simply calling it my dragon sword. There were 2 holes in it for upgrading purposes now, so clearly it was evolving without a hitch. I was happy with that. Maybe it'd evolve more if I gave it a more formal name? No way. Forget it. Impossible. Part of me did want to try it out, but I didn't want just any old name for it. I'd try the name change once I thought up something really cool. But just because my EP, or Magicule count, was way ahead of the pack, that didn't mean I could rest easy. Benimaru, Diablo, and Zijin were hot on my heels, and people like Testarossa and the other 2 demonesses were monsters in battle. Testarossa, after all, gave Velgrind a run for her money despite having 10 times the Magicule energy. It proved that stats weren't as important as how well you used your powers, I suppose, and by powers, I meant your Magicule count, fighting level, and abilities put together. In the battle against the Empire, they had all made maximum use of that power. If I wanted to prepare for the battles to come, I certainly couldn't let myself fall behind. For now, at least, I was ahead of Carrera and clearly living up to my reputation, so let's focus on other matters. The protection I received from Veldora was gone, taking the form of a patronage instead. Had I grown to where I was offering my patronage to others, rather than accepting their good graces? Anyway, I'd better quit trying to escape reality. It was fine that my stats got streamlined and all, but I had only 2 skills left. Luckily, Dr. Seal couldn't wait to explain matters. First, I integrated the obsolete Raphael and Belzebuth. Whoa. Wait. What was that? What did it just breathlessly spit out? It integrated Raphael, practically my parent at this point, because it was no longer necessary? Is that a problem? So I wasn't mishearing this. I knew that, of course, but I never thought Seal would go through with it. Like, could Seal even exist without Raphael? Yes. I am already independent, so there is no need to worry. Seal calmly answered my doubts. Even Raphael, something at the core of my being, was just more grist for Dr. Seal's mill. Its deeds were a shock to me, but as it was explained to me, this wasn't a big deal because Raphael was a shell of its former self anyway. What mattered was what was inside, and so Seal had gone to work, no feelings, no deep emotion. The way it so thoroughly cut away all unnecessary skills was clear to me now. If it wasn't a problem, then fine, but did it need to consume Belzebuth as well? Of course. I really should have had it check with me first, I weakly replied, but Seal kept on explaining like it knew it was in the right. To sum up, my skills had transformed beyond recognition. It was way more than mere adjusting at this point. I mean, adjusting skill was what it did, but it still made no sense to me. So what were these skills now? The first one, Azathoth, Lord of the Void, was born from integrating Raphael and Belzebuth. Veldora, Lord of the Storm, as well as the just-acquired Velgrind, Lord of the Flame, were also sacrificed for the cause. All the related abilities were carried on, however, so Seal claimed it was no problem at all. That meant Azathoth contained the abilities Soul Glutton, Void Collapse, Complex Space, Release True Dragon, Flame/Storm, Corify True Dragon, Flame/Storm, Control Dimensions, and Multidimensional Barrier. My old Summon True Dragon was gone, but turning Release True Dragon on and off had the same effect. Besides, now that Veldora and Velgrind were free, they could come to my side with no magical coercion, so I really didn't need it. Corify True Dragon piqued my interest, and that turned out to be literal. It allowed me to turn the true dragons into blade cores I could put into the holes in my straight sword. I repeat, it took the massive energy cloud known as a true dragon and condensed it into a little ball for my sword. I was afraid to even imagine what sort of incredible force that would unleash. I'd need their permission for this, but really, I was too scared to even picture when I might need to bust this out. Better seal it away for now, I thought, shutting it down before I even tried using it. I mean, no way Velgrind would agree to it, but I bet Veldora would be up for trying anything once. That concerned me, so I kept it a secret. More to the point, the real killer abilities here were the ones provided by Azathoth itself. Soul Glutton, a superpowered version of Predate and Glutton. Consumes the target, soul and all. Void Collapse, the ultimate destructive force, driving a world of chaos. Requires a monist to fully control. Complex Space, a world of chaos. A superpowered version of my stomach and isolate abilities, a prison cell that locks away anything that must be isolated. Control Dimensions, gain a grasp of time and space, allowing for instant transport with a single thought. Can even impact time. Multidimensional Barrier, a multi-layer barrier kept on at all times. Provides absolute defense via dimensional faults. That was how Dr. Seal explained it, and now things were sounding pretty intense. It tried to do all this to me during battle, even. It's nuts. That talk of absolute defense via dimensional faults, though, doubt I could trust that one. This was passing itself off as stronger and safer than a distortional field, but there were no absolutes in this world. I wouldn't be tricked that easily. Of course, I should have realized the moment Ranga obtained Haster that I was due for some serious ability upgrades. So it wasn't a surprise so much as a feeling of sheer exasperation. With Azathoth in hand, I really didn't need any other abilities, did I? The second ultimate skill in my inventory was good old Shub Nigurath, and those were the two skills this round of ability adjust had left me. These were clearly power-ups from before, but at first glance, it felt like I had lost some abilities. Hasten thought, for starters, but I could still use that one just fine. What was up with that? That family of skills, Hasten thought, predict future attack, analyze and assess, parallel operation, combine, disassemble, cast cancel, all of creation, food chain, dominate thought, dominate laws, and transform element, are calculation-based abilities that have been integrated with myself. They are thus available to you at a faster reaction time than before. I guess I should praise this as a massive leap forward. Something told me this was going too far, but think of it this way, I was probably gonna need it for the next war. Wimping out now would lead to more losses later. That was the resolve I needed here. If I wanted to enjoy peace in the future, I couldn't leave anything behind, and I couldn't show any mercy. So that rounded out my strength, but how did I stack up with Veldora these days? Name, Veldora Tempest. EP, 88,126,579. Race, highest level Chaos Elemental, True Dragon. Patronage, Grace of Abundance, Protection of the Storm. Title, Storm Dragon. Magic, True Dragon Magic. Ability, Intrinsic Skills Universal Detect, Dragon Soul Aura, Universal Shapeshift. Ultimate Skill Nyarlathotep, Lord of Chaos. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Resist Chaos Attack. That was his current state. His resistances were perfect, of course, but worthy of note was his off-the-charts existence point count. The only thing you could really do at this point was laugh. All that crap he did while he was being measured, you know. I was about to meet with Ultima, so I'd made to stand up and leave when Veldora got in my way. Qua ha ha ha. Rimuru, I understand you've been conferring with Benimru and his fellows? I happen to be free right now. Huh. I'm busy. Sorry, but I'll play with you when things calm down a bit. Whoa, whoa, whoa. It's not that. I was just wondering when you'd confer with me. Pardon? I didn't need to interview him. Like, Veldora wasn't my servant or anything, and if I wanted his stats, I could ask Seal for them. But we talk all the time anyway. Do we need anything that formal? What? Stop being such a stick in the mud. Yeah. You need to realize how lonely you're making my master and me here. Great. Ramirez was joining in now. But seriously, we really did talk all the time. And yeah, I'd love to break out my avatar core and play with you guys, but work's more important. Besides, we were in the throes of war right now. Remember? We didn't know where Feldway was, so things had simmered down at the moment, but I didn't want to fully kick back until we at least had our troops ready to intercept the enemy. Stop being selfish, all right? Once things settle down, I'll... No. I don't mean it like that. I've grown stronger, you see, so I wanted to brag about it to you. I know you are busy, so you only need to be with me for a few moments. Yeah, he's right. You're the only one who can produce pinpoint EP readings, so help a dragon out, won't ya? What I'm saying is that I can trick Ramirez's measurements to produce anything I want, and I want to prove it to you. Oh. That's completely impossible, I know I can't measure it down to the ones digit, but you can't fake the entire system on me. Okay. So I was being dragged into an utterly pointless argument. Once it reaches this point, they refuse to listen to anybody else. It's faster just to play along a bit than defy them. All right. Let's go to the control center, then. So I measured Veldora's existence points. The equipment for this was connected to the monitors all around the labyrinth, but only the main panel in our control center could operate it. Seal could synchronize itself with the labyrinth, allowing me to take measurements anywhere we wanted, but that's my little secret. I was short on time, so we quickly trundled over to the control center. Right. So I measured my master, and I came up with an EP of 88 million. And that's impressive enough, but he insists he can push that figure higher whenever he wants. I want you to yell at him not to be so full of himself. It was an unimaginable figure. No human could beat him, not even a million class level saint. But was the number accurate? Yes. Veldora's existence points are exactly 88,126,579. Pretty close. Measuring these high numbers came at the cost of precision, but since we mostly used our equipment to evaluate labyrinth challengers and invaders, there was no pressing need for a system upgrade. But if Veldora really could cook the figures to say whatever he wanted, it proved there was something wrong with our measurement gear. I didn't want that to go unaddressed, so it was a good thing I'd bothered to check just now. At least this brief diversion wasn't a total waste of time. Now we'd have to see if Veldora really could cheat the system. Well, my measurements say 88.12 million. That's pretty much the same. So are you saying you can bump that number up at will? Or is it underestimating your score? Either way, I wanted to ask how he'd do it and come up with countermeasures. When I asked Veldora for a sample, he smiled the biggest grin ever and removed his coat. Oh, great, I thought. A bead of cold sweat felt like it was running down my skin even though I'd stopped sweating long ago. Then that laugh came roaring through. Qua ha ha ha. Behold, and look closely, as I unleash my true power. With a loud, echoing whump, the coat fell to the floor. It was followed by the wrist and ankle bands he had on his arms and legs, all smashing against the floor and leaving cracks. Taking off heavy clothing wasn't going to up the numbers. I'd never let that happen. EP measures the amount of energy within you. It's got nothing to do directly with your battle performance. But Veldora didn't get the message. Well, go ahead. Measure me with that machine of yours. But don't blame me if I break it. Sheesh, this is embarrassing. I understood what he was trying to do, but it was just too pathetic to watch. I just made another measurement, but there is not even the slightest change to his statistics. Of course there isn't. Veldora, listen to me. Master, it's still at 88 million. Ramirez just stabbed him in the heart with the dagger of truth. Don't be ridiculous. Rimuru, be honest with me. My EP must have doubled by now, did it not? I gave him a sympathetic look. I know you can hide your aura, but EP has kind of a different nuance. Then, as earnestly as I could, I explained that existence points were a measure of your energy store, not some kind of battle level from action manga. Veldora turned bright red upon realizing his error. It was an amusing story at this point, but he didn't need to fake anything. This really was an incredible reading. Nothing apart from an ultimate level attack would scratch him. And the abilities he'd gained were incredible too. Dr. Seal's adjustments had evolved his skill into Nyarlathotep, Lord of Chaos, which included hasten thought, analyze and assess, all of creation, control probability, parallel existence, investigate truth, control dimensions, and multidimensional barrier. That's a wide variety, and Seal's rearranging and organizing made them far easier to tap into. He even gained parallel existence. I knew from fighting Velgrind just how much of a pain that was, but with control probability in his quiver as well, Veldora really did feel invincible. In fact, he was, as long as I didn't die. His heart core was still inside me, his memories and emotions backed up inside. Between that and being able to launch a separate body at any time, there was practically zero chance of destroying him. The whole EP thing was a laugh, but I truly was glad to have him on our side. So Veldora's existence points were more than 10 times mine, and I likely stood no chance against him, but I still had questions. For one, I'd beaten Velgrind recently. I'd used predate on her, even. Her EP at the time was reported to me as around 26.87 million. I consumed more than 50% of her, by the way. Something like 30% was still in recovery, and that would be restored back to what I ate as well. Seal was certainly careful with this stuff, which I was glad for. My question was that considering all the energy of hers that I'd consumed, my EP actually seemed kind of low. It was more than enough, of course, and I think battle sense is more important, but it was still something I wondered about. The answer is obvious. The energy you consumed was taken into your body at one point, but it was turned into your blood and flesh and then set free via release True Dragon. And, what does that mean? It means that my master's maximum existence point value can be accurately defined as the sum of Veldora's and Velgrind's EP. I was forcibly stunned into silence. So when I had released True Dragon turned off, that's when I could break out my full force. But, the output's the same either way, so maybe having more energy didn't mean anything. I was sure Velgrind made separate bodies of herself because she maxed out what only one of her could produce too. There's no limit to someone's potential force, but if you can't hit someone with it, it's a moot point. Gain enough to destroy an entire planet, and it gets hard to precisely control it too. Maximum power, I concluded, meant little to nothing. I should also note that Velgrind's estimated EP when I consumed her was 49,829,987. That was Seal's calculation, and I'm sure it was perfect, but right now, her count had gone way up. Name, Velgrind. EP, 74,350,087. Race, highest level Chaos Elemental, True Dragon. Patronage, Grace of Flame. Title, Flame Dragon. Magic, True Dragon Magic. Ability, Intrinsic Skills Universal Detect, Dragon Soul Aura, Universal Shapeshift. Ultimate Skill, Kthuga, Lord of the Fire God. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Resist Chaos Attack. That was Velgrind's current status. She went down by a fifth only to then go way past her initial value, more of an evolution than merely growing. Her abilities were the same as before after a round of seal optimization, but I was sure she was a master at using them. Kthuga comprised Hasten Thought, Flame Excitation, Parallel Existence, Control Dimensions, Transdimensional Leap, and Multidimensional Barrier. A real rogues gallery. I had last seen Velgrind several days ago, so I had no idea what she was going through. Presumably, I'd see her tomorrow, and I really wasn't sure how to approach her. She'd be scary if I riled her, so I resolved never to goad her again. My interviews, really a way to check on our current state with Seal, had come to a much appreciated close.